like to call the Teaching and Learning Subcommittee meeting together for the evening. And at this time, I would invite Heather Wojcik to join us. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm honored to be here to present the Program Improvement Plan along with members of the District Family Liaison Team. Sitting on the far left-hand side of me is Ray Lau, and next to Ray is Moshi Dong. Sitting on my immediate right-hand side is Laura Tung, and next to Laura is Ben Wu. This team successfully implemented specific goals highlighted in this plan. Also, I would like to mention the site-based family liaisons who also help to improve family engagement at the following schools: Solange de Medeiros at Quincy High School, Emily Carey at both Atlantic Middle School and North Quincy High School. The dedication of this entire family liaison team is greatly appreciated. This presentation will begin with demographics, followed with last year's goals. Then the family liaisons and I will present goals for this school year. The presentation will conclude with examples of the family liaison teams, professional development, and activities. All right, let's begin with page 5. It is noted on page 5 the number of languages represented in Quincy Public Schools. There are 79 languages identified. After English, the most commonly spoken languages include Cantonese, Mandarin, Portuguese, Spanish, and Vietnamese. On page 6, there's a breakdown by grade level of the English Learner Education Program, which embraces 1,721 students, with the largest population at the elementary schools. The English Learner Education Program includes 6 goals last year. On page 20, goal 1 is listed, addressing student success plans. The Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Erin Perkins, addressed this goal at a previous meeting. The student success plans will be a goal for this coming year as well. On page 21, goal 2 is listed, addressing the state seal of biliteracy. We were hoping to award the seal to 35 graduating seniors. We met this goal with 55 graduating seniors, awarded the seal in 15 languages. In 2 years, Quincy Public Schools awarded the state seal of biliteracy in 17 languages to 78 students. A proud accomplishment showcasing the richness of Quincy's linguistic diversity. At this time, registration is open for the December testing administration. On page 22, goal 3 is listed, addressing the new parent orientations provided by the family liaison sitting with me this evening. After families complete the registration process at central registration, they participate in a new parent orientation. We were hoping to increase the participation by 10% in the social media platforms WeChat and WhatsApp. We met this goal. WeChat increased from 700 parents to 786 parents, with our Chinese community who uses WeChat on a regular basis to keep in touch with family and friends outside the United States. WhatsApp increased from 250 parents to 370 parents, with the Portuguese and Spanish-speaking families using this social media platform for the same reason. These social media platforms are reaching more families who don't check email frequently or don't have voicemail set up. On page 23, goal 4 is listed, addressing the virtual parent academies provided by the family liaisons here, who presented these academies directly in Cantonese, Mandarin, Portuguese, and Spanish, allowing the families to speak and type in the chat box in these languages. We were hoping to increase the attendance of 90 participants by 10%. In the 4 parent academies, we met this goal with over 100 participants in attendance at each one. The topics range from learning how to access and use the translation tool on the district and school websites to learning about the report card and how to participate actively at a parent conference. In addition, the family liaisons gather family feedback to identify additional topics for future parent academies. Parents of high school students wanted to learn about high school in the United States, and specifically in Quincy, so a parent academy was created and provided on June 3rd for 50 parents. On page 24, Goal 5 is listed, addressing the language access plan. This is a 2-year goal. Moshi Don will share details about this goal later in this presentation. On page 24, Goal 6 is listed, addressing the ESL curriculum pilot. Last year, both the elementary and middle school EL teams piloted curriculum, searching for more engaging, meaningful, and relevant materials to foster a dynamic and effective learning environment. They reviewed 3 programs, reflecting the various English language proficiency levels and cultures of the students. Training ensured equitable instruction between classes and schools. Classroom observations of the curriculum in action opened doors for collaboration. Regular discussions about the curriculum created opportunities for the teachers to share best practices, knowledge, and resources. The year wrapped up with a vote, Vista at the elementary schools and National Geographic at the middle schools. We met the goal with the identification of this curriculum for our students. This ends the reflections for last year's goals. At this time, the family liaisons and I will share the 4 goals for this year. On page 25, Goal 1 is listed, addressing the student success plans with the proficiency targets increasing by 7% in grades 1 through 12. On page 26, Goal 2 is listed, addressing the ESL curriculum implementation of the new Vista curriculum at the elementary schools and National Geographic curriculum at the middle schools. The actual professional development plan is located on pages 29, 30, and 31. This year, one thing is certain for these 2 teams: curriculum implementation is a process that can feel overwhelming. So to ensure that teachers feel supported and heard, the process is chunked into manageable pieces. The training is followed by material exploration, and afterwards there are peer observations. This cycle repeats itself. The professional development calendar with monthly meetings and peer observations accommodates and acknowledges a shift in the new learning happening. Challenges and victories will be embraced through the support of each other, fostering an environment of collaboration. At this time, I would like to introduce Moshi Don, who will share about the language access plan.
Good evening. On page 27, goal number 3 is listed, and that addresses the language access plan. DESE invited Quincy Public Schools to join its first cohort of districts to participate in a training on how to develop a district language access plan. A language access plan is a document that will outline 5 key areas. The first one is identifying family language access needs. The second one is providing language access services and supports. The third one is extending awareness to all staff, families, and community members. The fourth one, training and education for the provision of effective services. And the fifth one, monitoring the provision of language access services. This is a 16-month training facilitated by the UMass Amherst Translation Center, and it started in January 2024, and it will conclude in June 2025. Heather Wojcik and the 4 district family liaisons attend monthly meetings with 3 other school districts, Barnstable, Revere, and Salem. And the monthly meetings alternate between a training session where we learn how to draft a specific building block of the language access plan. And then there is also a presentation session where each district presents their draft of the assigned building block. In that presentation session, we have an opportunity to receive feedback from other districts, from other colleagues, and where they can share their questions and share feedback with each other. We also have the opportunity to participate in bi-monthly district-specific coaching sessions with the UMass Amherst Translation Center to receive feedback on the ongoing development of Quincy Public Schools Language Access Plan. We're looking forward to having a complete draft of the Language Access Plan in June 2025, at which time we will be able to share it with the school committee. We are grateful for your support while we try to accomplish this very important goal. And now I will turn the time over to my colleague Ray, who will talk about goal number 4.
Oh, thank you, Moshi. Is it working? Oh, sorry. This way. So, good evening, members of the school committee. Today, I'm excited to share our new goal for the 2024-2025 school year, focused on enhancing language support for our families through increased usage of scheduled interpretation service. It's on page 28, goal number 4. So our objective is clear. We aim to boost the number of scheduled interpretation requests by 10% from our baseline of 741 requests recorded in last school year. This goal reflects Quincy Public Schools' commitment to fostering effective communication and ensuring every family has equitable access to information, regardless of language barriers. To reach this goal, we have implemented a series of action steps designed to raise awareness and make the interpretation process more accessible to our staff and families. In late September, all QPS staff received flyer via email. This flyer outlines the options available for interpretation, including immediate access through the language line, scheduled interpretation, and support from our dedicated family liaisons. On November 5th, Professional Development Day, Family Liaison reinforced this information by presenting the interpretation tools directly to staff, ensuring everyone understands how and when to access these services. We also share this information with school principals during their team meetings, equipping them to further support their staff in utilizing these interpretation resources. In next January, we will follow up by resending the interpretation flyer to all staff as a reminder of the available resources and to keep this information top of mind. Throughout the school year, our team will continue to remind staff through timely emails, reinforcing the importance of utilizing these interpretation tools. Our hope is that by making these resources more visible and accessible, we will see a meaningful increase in scheduled interpretation requests. Ultimately, this will enhance communication with our diverse families and help create a more inclusive school community. Thank you for your support as we work toward this goal. Now I will pass this time to my colleague Bean.
Thank you. Good evening, dear school committees. My name is Bing Wu, one of the family liaisons. I'm glad to sit here again and report on our work. Pages 32, 33, and 34 outline the professional development plan for the family liaison team. UMass Translation Center, sponsored by DESI, provides online workshops in interpretation and translation for public school settings, and the Language Access Planning Institute with the coaches to guide districts in creating a language access plan for families. These professional development opportunities ignite initiatives, procedures, and best practices to equally engage all families during the QPS following up training at Coddington. So from team's goal number 3, DESI invited Quincy Public Schools to join its first cohort of districts participating in an academic style training on language access plan development. As we can see from the left side topics, the Language Access Planning Institute workshop happens every month for 1.5 hours until next June. And for every training topic, we will need to complete the tasks and meet again for the coaching session to discuss the assignments. And this training include all 5 of us. All family liaisons, including school-based, remain ongoing in different topics interpretation training every month for 2 hours each time and until June 2025. So that's all from me. Thank you all very much, and welcome, Laura.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Laura Tong. I'm one of the family liaison. Today, I would like to provide an overview of the page 43 and 44, outline the district family liaison activities to strengthen the connection between schools, families, and the community. The role of a family liaison is essential in building this connection through structured, meaningful activities designed to support families and enhance school engagement. On a daily basis, we provide individualized support using using different communication methods like phone calls, text message, emails, WhatsApp, and WeChat. We manage social media posts, newsletter, and send reminders for school events to keep everyone informed. Additionally, we ensure assessment updates are accurate and include language access coding for our diverse community. Each week, we handle translation service and interpretation requests. We prepare the welcome packet and make phone calls to new families to address their concerns. Monthly, we participate in the Language Access Planning Institute, which organize training sessions and workshops. These workshops allow us to learn from other districts about how they support bilingual families. We will engage in discussion and share our experience. Now we're back to our monthly highlights. From September to December, we concentrate on school orientation, open houses, parent academies, and promoting the seal of biliteracy to celebrate multilingual achievements. January to March includes supporting new parents, conducting data validation, and preparing for cultural and academic events. April through June, we shift focus to summer program, preparation, and year-end activities. Our summer activities include the English Learner Summer Class, Camp Can Do. Also the new parent orientation session, access score data entry, and enhanced outreach effort to support families. We also engaged in IEP meetings, school tours, special education testing, student observation, and host cultural events that enrich the school community. In conclusion, the family liaison role ensures constant support, cultural inclusion, and open communication throughout the school year. Thank you, and I will pass to Heather.
Thank you, Laura. This concludes our presentation. Thank you for your support of the English Learner Education Program. And now we invite questions and comments.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from my colleagues?
But thank you for the work that you do. I love the accents, by the way, and I'm envious of your ability to be able to speak your language and English with proficiency. And hopefully that's where we're going to get the students that we have, that you work with. And but this looks great, and thank you for your work.
Mrs. Hubley.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you so much for this and all that you do. Your professionalism in everything is wonderful, and your thoughtfulness in all the professional development is great. I love that. Thank you so much, and thank you.
Ms. Perdios.
Echoing the comments of my colleagues for all your work and all you do. And definitely the family liaisons have added so much to QPS. In fact, I saw, I'm not sure which of you I saw, but I saw a few of you walking around maybe with families for the parent-teacher conferences at Quincy High. And that's just so helpful to have parents actually be able to have meaningful conversations with their students' teachers. So thank you for that. I do have a couple questions. It's kind of my first rodeo with the SIP, so bear with me while I ask a few. Page 16 and 17. I'm just looking at the MCAS data, and I realize that, we have to sort of take this with a grain of salt because we have the language barrier, but it does concern me when we go down in percentages on the percent exceeding or meeting expectations, and it did seem like in a bunch of categories, we did decrease from 2023 to 2024, and more so on page 17 for the former English learners. So I'm just, I guess, and I didn't really see that kind of being addressed in any of the goals for the upcoming years. It didn't seem like we were really kind of specifically trying to increase or get that back, or any reflection on why that was, or a plan to kind of make 2025 a little bit better on that? And related to that, do you think that the former EL numbers here, so many of them decreased, that could it be that we're taking kids out of, are we kind of graduating them out of the EL program too soon? Is that why we're seeing those big declines in just about every category on the FEL charts on page 17? So if you wouldn't mind starting by commenting on those.
Well, for our former English learners, there's a new guidance document in 2024 that actually relinquishes that ability for me to actually exit the students. The state now has it where they exit as soon as the student reaches a 4.2 overall and a 3.9 in literacy. Automatically, they're off the roster and they become a FEL. So now it'll be interesting to see how the trends go as a result, because again, it's new guidance, so these numbers are reflecting the new guidance that just passed. In the past, we would have, the exiting criteria would be overall access scores of 4.2, literacy 3.9, but teacher recommendation. So I'm curious to see, like you have noted, are these trends happening just in Quincy, or is it across the state now that the state has changed their guidelines specifically for 2024, which happened in June?
That's great. I just wouldn't want them to be losing services that, you know, if it's causing declines academically.
No, that's good. So I'm glad to see, you know, I'll be watching it. 'Cause that is something.
That's great.
Yeah.
And then the seal of biliteracy, I guess I sort of have a question on, I definitely see the value. It's fantastic. I'm so glad we have more students achieving it. But I'm not understanding quite why this is a goal in the EL program, because it's not just, I mean, these are kids that speak English as a first language going and getting a second language. So why is it listed as a goal for the EL program?
It was a wonderful thing for me to embrace. I'm excited because the number of students that are actually being awarded the seal are former English learners, not within the 4-year requirement by the state, but beyond the 4 years. So it's neat when I look at the numbers and I look at the students' history to see, ooh, these are students who were English learners back in 8th grade and now FELs and are now getting the award, or students that are back from 4th grade now getting the award. So it's neat to kind of see the trends and talk with these families who we do have relationships with to be like, what are you doing? Oh, we're keeping with those German classes, you know, Miss Wojcik, on Saturday. So it is, I understand where you're coming from, because it's true. Our seal of biliteracy is looking at our bilingual students, home language and proficiency in English. It's also looking at our FEL students who are, you know, now proficient in English with their home language. And it's looking at our world language students who are native English speakers who are also studying another language. So, yes.
Okay, all right. I guess I just wasn't quite sure why it landed here. If it was, that's only, if the EL and FEL is only a portion of our students that hit that. So that was my question there. And then on page 25, under the new program goals for Goal 1, it seems like Goal 1, you didn't hit that goal for one of those groups. I think it was 1 to 8. Was it 1 to 8?
It is 1
Yeah.
through 8, yes.
So I guess I'm wondering, I'm seeing the action steps for going forward, but I don't know what the action steps were that you tried already. So what is different in these action steps that make you think that you could hit that goal for those grade levels going forward that wasn't happening last year?
Sure. The big piece this year for grades 1 through 8 is the new curriculum. So now we will have new curriculum in place, implemented this year, specifically targeting grades 1 through 8.
Okay. And what is the new curriculum? Is it math, English, and all that, or is it can you just tell me a little more about the curriculum?
Sure. So the elementary curriculum is referred to as VISTA, but it's actually targeting their listening, speaking, and reading skills. Same thing for National Geographic at the middle school level, still targeting the listening, speaking, reading, and writing skills. So as soon as they have that firm foundation like a house, then we're able to build on the other pieces as well.
Okay. So we don't have any additional like math or English goals. Your goal to get them to do better on those MCAS tests are to improve their comprehension, expecting that that's going to result in an increase.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then I think I just had one more, the LPAC. I haven't heard too much about the LPAC lately, and I'm just wondering if you could just talk a little bit about how that's going, how the membership's going, are they still meeting, what that looks like right now.
Sure, the LPAC right now is in a building year, I like to call it. So we have a new president in place. So Ray Liu will actually be the one, he's right here. He's actually has a child in the system, so he will take on the role of building the outreach and getting families involved through LPAC. That is the big goal this year for them.
Okay, great. And you're having regular meetings, or you're planning to have regular meetings? Yeah, that's great. And what a great thing to have you working here and a child here and through this whole lens. So thank you. Thanks for your patience on my questions. Appreciate it. Thank you all.
I have a couple of quick questions. On page 12, you're talking about the opt-out of students, and I'm wondering how often and at what grade level students typically opt out.
Okay. When the 2024 guidance came out, I was like looking for some good pieces, and that was one good piece, was the fact that now a kindergarten student can exit the program. In the past, we could not exit grades grades K and 1. Now we can exit a student as soon as they meet that criteria at K. We can exit them at 1, exit at 2, all the way up. Before this new guidance, we could not touch K and 1. So to your point, we had a lot of opt-out for kindergarten grade 1. These are students who ended up being like in the top percentage of their class. So as a result, those numbers at the elementary level have decreased because these students no longer qualify, which, it's like they're exited, they're out.
Okay.
This is great.
Makes sense, makes sense. On page 16, I'm sorry, with some of the stuff that Mrs. Perkins was talking about, I was noticing that decline too, but they're different kids.
Totally different.
So the fourth grade last year is different from the fourth grade this year, and so it's, I'm sure the curriculum is going to help, but looking at the math stuff, that is great. That really was great.
Yep.
The math scores, so I'm very pleased to see that kind of, especially for kids who are still learning English, to be
Yeah.
doing that well. And on page 18, so why do you think the access numbers for grades 11 and 12 are so low? I understand grade 6 because grade 6 is just like that for us everywhere.
On page 18.
On page 18, the grade 11, the district made progress, only 14% in grade 11 and grade 12. I'm wondering if that's the same issue we're having with the older kids coming in and just learning English and leaving us, or not really. I'm wondering what that is.
We have a very large newcomer population coming into the 2 high schools right at the moment, so this is kind of what I'm looking at right now. Yeah.
I know it's what Erin's looking at a lot too, to find, for other reasons, but also,
Yeah.
so thank you, I'm glad that it's something that you're looking at. On page 21, the biliteracy thing, I just want to say congratulations again. I know I said it before, but that is an amazing thing. I can't imagine any state, any city in the state did better than that. I really can't, for the percentage of students we had. I have one question, it's probably because I'm just not understanding it, but on page 28, scheduled interpretation process. I thought it was something to do with the schedule. It's not something to do with the schedule, right? It's the schedule of things you're going to do in the interpretation. Okay, so I no longer have a question about that.
Okay.
You answered my question about the LPAC that Mrs. Perkins asked, and yep, I'm good. That's the only thing I think. Thank you so much. This was great. Thank you for coming. I can't tell you how valuable you people are to have you here to talk to our families. I mean, it makes all the difference in the world for the families to find someone who speaks their language and can really contact with them. And so, I think this is, whoever made this call, congratulations. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Motion to accept the plan by Mrs. Hubley, seconded by Mrs. Cahill. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You do it. Now I'd like to invite Mr. Ford and Mr. Smith to present Mr. Ford and Mr. Smith to present their school improvement plan. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, good evening. Got the mics in between. We're good. Okay. Good evening, members of the school committee and members of the superintendent's leadership team. Thank you for taking the time to review our 2024-2025 school improvement plan. It is an honor to be here alongside Assistant Principal Ed Smith and Assistant Superintendent Dr. Erin Perkins to discuss this year's plan with you. Before I begin our presentation, I want to acknowledge that this morning we had an incredible opportunity to showcase Quincy High School's Tiny House project live on WBZ Channel 4. I want to take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude to Quincy Chamber of Commerce President, Mr. Tim Cahill, Executive Director of Career, Vocational, and Technical Education, Keith Segalla, Assistant Principal Ed Smith, CVTE Department Chair Jill Bernardo, and our exceptional CVTE teachers, Bob Burke, Carpentry, Rodney Davis, Electrical, Scott Devlin, Medical Fabrication, and Chuck Hannaford, Plumbing, and of course, our outstanding current and former students. Thank you to everyone who has contributed to the success of this project. Your efforts continue to inspire pride and admiration throughout our school and community. In addition, we proudly celebrated 76 John and Abigail Adams Scholarship recipients in our auditorium this morning for their outstanding performance in ELA, Math, and Science MCAS. What an incredible day here at Quincy High School. Now we'll begin our SIP presentation. Over the past 2 years, we have been deeply engaged in the NEAS accreditation process, which have been pivotal in shaping our strategies and direction. Last year, our school improvement plan was crafted with careful consideration of the 3 priority areas highlighted from our December 2022 collaborative conference NEAS visit. Those 3 priority areas included developing the vision of the graduate, curriculum planning and course alignments, and tiered monitoring systems of support. These 3 priority areas continue to be school-wide goal for us this year as we prepare for our decennial visit, which will take place on December 2nd through December 4th. In addition, we also have 2 significant goals focused on reducing chronic absenteeism and enhancing student achievement and growth. I will elaborate on these goals further during the presentation. Building on these priorities and goals, we have crafted this year's school improvement plan with input from each department to ensure that our goals align with maximizing the learning potential of every student. Our aim is to foster both academic excellence and social development, creating an environment where students thrive holistically. At this point, I would like to hand it over to Assistant Principal Ed Smith, who will review last year's goals and reflections. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Ford. Good evening. Thank you for having us tonight. As we reflect on the 2024 QHS assessment data on page 5 of the school improvement plan, I'd like to start by highlighting the improvement shown with our EL students. On the 2024 access test, 24% of our EL students made progress, which is a 12% increase from last year. Overall, we did see a decline in our MCAS scores from 2023 to 2024. On the biology MCAS, students earned 50% of possible points, which was 5% below those earned in 2023. The percentage of students in ELA who attained meeting or exceeding expectations went from 56 to 51. And in math, we actually had a 3% increase from 48% to 51% of possible points earned. However, with the increased threshold for meeting expectations on this year's assessment, there shows a decline in the number of students meeting or exceeding expectations from 46 to 43. While this year's vocal survey identified areas for growth, there's also many positive takeaways, with 88% of students reporting they're respected and supported by adults, 82% of students feeling a sense of belonging, and 86% of students responding that teachers set high expectations for their work. Overall, the school rating for climate on the 2024 vocal survey increased 1% from 41 to 42. Next on page 6, there are 12 department goal reflections from last year's plan. Of those departmental goals, we met 4, made progress on 6, and did not meet 2. We're extremely proud of the work that was done across all departments, and specific highlights include the curriculum development in PE, wellness, art, and music, the continued implementation of open parachute lessons in our student support department, and an increase of students from 12 to 25 who graduated with the Seal of Biliteracy thanks to the work of our World Language Department. I will now turn things back over to Mr. Ford, who will share our first two school-wide goals.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. We achieved a great deal last year, as highlighted on page 53, which details our completed action steps. Many of these are now seamlessly integrated into our daily operations, including our monthly advisory period, which has been utilized to build a sense of community and provide students with grade-appropriate life skills, such as financial literacy and mindfulness strategies to be successful. It is crucial that we continue to establish processes to effectively analyze, identify, develop, implement, monitor, and revise our practices to ensure ongoing success and improvement. On page 11, our first school-wide goal focuses on completing the NEAS accreditation process. This goal includes fully integrating Think, Work, Share, and Be Aware into all teaching and learning activities to ensure Quincy High School graduates are equipped with the skills and competencies needed for future success. We are also collaborating with the district and North Quincy High School to finalize curriculum guides, enhancing coherence and consistency across all subjects. Additionally, through the development and implementation of our multi-tier system of support, we are providing a structured, multi-level framework to address the diverse needs of our student body. Staff training on this system is ongoing, allowing us to make adjustments as needed to ensure effectiveness. Our second school-wide goal, outlined on page 12, focuses on improving student engagement and chronic absenteeism. Last year, we reduced our chronic absenteeism rate from 32 to 30.9%, and this year our goal is to lower it even further to 25.9%. To achieve this, we will begin by identifying students at risk of chronic absenteeism. Consistent communication with families, both individually and collectively, will be key, providing clear definitions of chronic absenteeism along with strategies and incentives to support students. We plan to initiate school-wide attendance challenges/initiatives and collaborate with student council, student support services, our deans, teachers, and families. By offering rewards for improved attendance and being intentional and engaging with students on the brink, we aim to keep them in school and on track.
Our third school-wide goal on page 14 is to improve the achievement of our lowest performing students with the goal of earning 12 or more points in the LPS category of the 2025 School Accountability Report from a base of 8 out of 24 possible points. Our action steps include creating and maintaining a positive learning environment, personalizing learning, providing frequent feedback, and increasing collaboration between teachers and families. We hope to do this by implementing an attendance monitoring system to contact families, working with teacher and department chairs to provide targeted classroom interventions, provide tutoring and small group instruction as necessary. Following our third school-wide goal in the SIP, beginning on page 16, we have our 13 department goals for this year. The PE and Wellness Department will implement opportunities for students to increase their overall physical and social emotional wellness. We intend to improve math fluency in our CBTE courses and will be developing curriculum guides in English, science, social studies, and world language. New for this year's plan is a dean's goal with targeted action steps to improve student attendance and decrease conduct referrals. The EL department aims to continue the increase in percentage of students who make progress with their English proficiency. The math department plans to implement low-floor, high-ceiling teaching strategies to increase student engagement and accelerate student learning and growth. The music department will increase proficiency in music literacy, and we will provide collaborative learning opportunity for students in art. The special education department will convert the old form IEPs to the new, more student-driven format. And finally, the student support team will collaborate with classroom teachers to implement trauma-enforced practices and a tiered system of support to all students in grades 9 through 12.
We take great pride in opportunities we provide for our students beyond the school day. Pages 34 through 36 highlight a diverse list of active clubs that many of our students engage in, with some participating in multiple groups. These clubs play a vital role in enriching our school community, both within and outside our building. This year, we're excited to introduce 6 new clubs: Athletes in Action, Arabic Calligraphy, Health Occupation Students of America, K-Pop Club, Mock Trial, and Pop Culture Club. Beyond our in-school initiatives and activities, we prioritize strong family communication and engagement. Tools like Aspen, Google Classroom, Naviance, and School Messenger keep families informed, while our translatable SMORE newsletter simplifies updates. Additionally, we celebrate student successes and share upcoming events through the President's Community Bulletin and various social media channels managed by departments, student organizations, and our administrative team. As noted on page 40, our total enrollment has increased by 27 students compared to last year, bringing us to 1,473 students, while the number of students in special education, low income, and our English learners categories have decreased. We are proud to report a significant increase of 20 students classified as former English learners. This achievement reflects the outstanding work of our EL teachers and EL support team, which was established in January of last year. Their efforts have created a seamless and effective support structure for our English learners, including the development and individualized student success plans, regular analysis of access scores, prompt resolution of scheduling conflicts, and consistent implementation of classroom strategies. These initiatives have been pivotal in helping our EL students achieve the highest possible accountability rating, a testament to their hard work and success. We greatly appreciate the facility improvements made last year, including the installation of fans in the gym and the replacement of the microphone audio system in both the gym and cafeteria. However, key facility and technology priorities remain, such as updating the outdated security camera system, replacing ceiling projectors and interactive whiteboards, and maintaining a steady supply of desktop computers, teacher laptops, student Chromebooks, and chargers. Structural repairs are also needed for settled sidewalks and ramps, damaged tiles, and broken interior doors, while updates to the gym floor and auditorium lighting and sound are essential. This year's school improvement plan has truly been a collaborative effort, driven by the collective commitment of our staff and students and community. Our primary goal remains to empower everyone to play an active role in shaping the direction and culture of Quincy High School. We are dedicated to being efficient, effective, and equitable in all we do, holding ourselves accountable, fostering a sense of belonging, delivering a culturally responsive curriculum, and strengthening our community. To everyone who is part of the Quincy High School community, think for yourself, work together, share with the world, and be aware of self and others. Thank you for your continued support.
Thank you. I'll entertain any questions or comments from my colleagues. Mrs. Cahill.
So just looking at actually, I would think that my first question would be, how has the incidence rate looked so far this year in comparison to last year's report? Are you seeing like a decrease, things better than what
So
happened last year?
anecdotally, one of the things that we noticed over time is that the number of incidents, the number of type of serious incidents that requires either communication to families or significant consequences based on decisions have decreased from last year compared to this year. I think that's a testament to our strategies in place in creating that safe, welcome, and respectful environment for everyone. I think the tone has been set from the beginning of the year of what the expectations are in the building. And really, between our student support staff, our deans, our teachers, just really being able to build those relationships, whether it's through our advisory period or other times that we're able to communicate with students overall, that, the students are getting back to teaching and learning, really, like getting back into coming to school, getting back to routines overall. Now, do we have things that would require, people will say cell phones is an issue, right? That type of deal. Do we have some of that? Yes, we do. But overall, the incidents that now required reporting to the state and or consequences that will be deemed as long-term, we've seen a decline in that.
I'm not going to point to anything specific here. My question would be the MCAS scores, declining by a few points here and there. they aren't that far off from a state scores. And I think the state scores are a good reflection, but they're also a compilation of all the different schools in the state, right? So you have high performers and all that. But what do we, how serious do you think this is for the school? Is it something that we should be really concerned with? And what do you think we can really do practically, in practicality, to bring those scores up? Is it an issue of student population, not really the teaching and learning, coming in and not really doing the work they need to do to improve? Are we not doing the work? Which I don't believe that's the case, because I think we all put, our system is a great system. But what do you, from your perspective, what do we need to do to make those better?
I think it's a combination of multiple outlets. I said for a school, one of the first things that comes to my mind is really from our perspective and our educators in the building. We are now in a place that we have a consistent number of our staffing, when it comes to staffing overall, right? When I first got to Quincy High School, it was a high turnover in our staff coming in, right? We've had a number of new staff that have come in, and, really allowing them to be really fully acclimated to what we're doing overall is one thing. I think another, like dealing with our chronic absenteeism students being in school, right, and starting some initiatives there to make sure that they're in the building, right, so they can have access to their learning, to their education, it is important. I do think, from a state perspective, I don't want to, minimize what the MCAS means overall, but, what we tend to focus on overall is our growth from a student from the time they enter our school, whether they come in ninth grade, being in Quincy Public Schools, or the number of students that we receive that transfer in, whether it's from another school within the Commonwealth, whether it's students that are coming in outside of the country, things of that nature. We pride ourselves in the growth that our students have over time. And unfortunately, like if MCAS, if you come in as a sophomore, you're taking the MCAS exam regardless of what you had prior to that, right? And so there's a combination of things that we're constantly looking at overall and trying to improve scores, but also know that there are several weights, there are several factors that come along in there that in some ways may be out of our control, but we're still trying to figure out ways to do that.
Just like to add to that growth is certainly something that we're focused on, looking at 8th grade to 10th grade to 12th grade. And Quincy High School does a really good job of getting students to the graduation requirement. And a specific data point was this November. And this will be an interesting year for the MCAS, right? We're still watching it closely, and we're following the standards, and we're going to work on the curriculum maps, which will help. But this November, we tested close to 100 students in math and ELA in the November retest, and 40 of those students had never tested at Quincy High School. So those were, juniors and seniors, and about 40 of the 100 students that took the test had not previously taken it at Quincy High.
Okay, great. I mean, I do think it's a complicated based on, who we have as students and all the complexities of the kids and attendance and all those kinds of things. But, of course, we don't want to see, we want to see stability or growth, for the kids. And you mentioned something about an increased threshold. Did they change the way they're, when did they do that, this year? Yeah, they did that this year. Okay, and my only other, I'll leave the rest to my colleagues, because I'm sure they all have questions. And if you don't, I'll come back to mine.
Mrs. Hoopley?
So my question about the dean's goal, first off, I kind of feel like it should be 2 goals. I don't really feel like it's 1 goal, it's 2 goals, because you can't really reduce tardiness and suspension rates. It's kind of like, that's 2 completely different things. I'm really unclear as to why it's 1 goal. But on that, I'm reading through the strategies and activities, and I'm really not seeing something that's, I wouldn't assume you're already doing. So I'm trying to figure out what's new in this that isn't being already done to already reduce the tardiness and suspension rates currently. So I was wondering if you could tell me what is kind of different to this than what I would have already assumed I'm seeing in your school already?
I guess we can dive into the goal a little bit more, but it is a new section on the school improvement plan. Last year, we hadn't had a dean's goal, so we're always measuring, monitoring, working with the deans, but we haven't had a specific goal with targeted action steps, even though these activities have been taking place and we're working day in and day out. It hasn't had the measurement that it now holds in the school improvement plan.
I would agree with that, right? So that's one of the, putting it in there, right? So even having our deans making sure that, you know, when it comes to school improvement plan overall, that we have a goal for that is very important. And in that, being able to, even though we may be doing some of these things already, it's being able to verbalize it, right? Being able to articulate exactly what we're trying to do. And again, from accountability perspective, right, we need to know if this is working or not, right? So like kind of having it written down, right, and saying, okay, we're being even more intentional of that. So now as we move forward, as we continue to progress, we can see, hey, is this working, right? Is it effective or not, right? And being able to say tangibly, like looking at our suspension rate, looking at our tardies. Tardies is a huge thing for us. And again, that's another one of those things where, because the mode of transportation for our students to even get to school is depending on the city to a certain extent, right? And we'd have conversations with either the MBTA or things of that nature to really help facilitate how our students get to school every day, right? And so there's a number of different factors going along with that, wanted to ensure that we have it as a goal moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Also, on your clubs, I love all the variety. I think it's wonderful. The cybersecurity club, that sounds like so much fun. What is QHS STEP Club? I didn't know what that was.
Yeah, so it's a dance team
Okay.
that's been established for a couple of years. So we have three different. We have we have a dance team, we have a K-pop, and we have a step club that started last year with that with a group of students going from there. Different styles, different genres of dancing that that
Okay,
students
I've
are.
probably seen them before.
Yeah.
And the Athletics in Action?
Yeah, so that's a newer club that happened this year, and right out the gate, they did a great job of collecting socks to give to Father Bill, and it was a club. It was ran for students that participate in sports after school and may not have the time to join another club. So we formed a club, right? Athletes in Action, and it's really a fundraising club overall.
Okay, and all the clubs are open to all grades?
Yes, pretty much. I mean, there are exceptions to maybe one or two specific clubs, but for the most part, they are all open to grades.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Am I good?
I think so.
Thank you. I love having you back. Your passion and enthusiasm is contagious. I really appreciate it. And what you bring to the city and the students. I have a couple of quick questions. So in the 2023, 2024 goals, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and I just noticed under math, CBTE, and social studies, the original goal called for consistent curriculum formats, and in each of those cases, it wasn't met. And I wonder, was the goal too ambitious? Is it too complicated? Did you get into it and realize maybe that's not necessary? What's the thinking on that?
Want me to go?
There's a lot of classes. So we did, we finished about 22 maps.
Yeah.
And we still have a lot of work to do. So they
It's
originally.
it's a multi-year.
Oh, it's a
process.
multi, for sure. It's a
Yeah.
multi-year.
Okay.
And they originally, we actually have a timeline that we've put together for both schools for NEASC purposes, but it's also just really good to have, updated curriculum maps for our courses. So the last time NEASC was here, Ed knows, Ed was here, we did we did curriculum maps, we put them on Aspen, they were available for everyone. So now we're in the process of updating all of those curriculum maps, aligning them to making sure they're aligned to the new standards, looking at different types of assessments, those kinds of things. And then, we are also going to be implementing more of a consistent review process as part of this work for the maps. So this won't happen again. It won't get to be, NEASC is coming in and we're updating all the maps. If we, set like a 3-year kind of timeline that we pull teams together to review maps. So we're constantly kind of evaluating and updating, making them more living documents.
So just to set expectations going forward, so it will always say in progress around that.
The expectation would be that, we'll do, the ones that are done now, they'll be due to be kind of relooked at before the other ones that aren't done. So yes, there'll always be something that we're working on to make sure it's up to date, aligned to the new standards, and reflects the best and most current practices in education.
Understood.
And can I just add one thing too? And then the CTE frameworks, Mr. Segalla can tell you, are continuously changing. There are a whole bunch of new ones, more are coming, so the teachers really have to wait until those are rolled out before they start aligning with them. But there are new frameworks coming in every one of the CTE programs, so it becomes an issue of giving the teachers some time to get acclimated to the new standards and then figuring that stuff out. So excuse me for interrupting.
No, that's helpful. I only raised it in just because the description said they are not in a consistent format, and there was no context to explaining all of that. So when you read, it's not in a consistent format, it's like, okay, well, what transpired? So I get it now. That's helpful. And a couple more questions. So the school climate goal, I know that's super important to you, Keith. And I didn't know if you, in your it says you did not meet that goal. Can you speak to, and I know that you look at that all the time and you want to see that goal met. What moving forward you're going to do to bump that up? That you think, what are the underlying things that you need to do to bump that up?
Sorry, I'm just looking for the right page so I know where I'm. Page,
I just took notes and I put all my notes
So,
on.
well, I could just speak in what we're doing for school climate in general at this point. So, one of the things that we're doing with our Culture and Climate Committee, this is going to be our second iteration of doing a school climate survey with our students and staff. The plan is to do that during our December advisory at this point. To really gain the necessary feedback of what's needed. When we did it, we're doing it every 2 years. We did it 2 years ago. From there was kind of like 3 buckets that came from that. One is students wanted to have their voices heard more, so student voice. And we felt like we were able to accomplish that a little bit more through some of the activities that we implemented. Advisory was kind of started through that as well to kind of build the necessary relationships with students and their homeroom teachers. Also in our hiring, we've had a more diverse staff being hired over the past 2 years. That came out of our last culture and climate survey from that standpoint. And then also providing staff with the necessary resources when we talk about being culturally responsive, and that's something that we also have done from there, right? So we're looking forward to our upcoming survey to see what more that we need to add when it comes to that. I think our advisory period is a huge component to what we've done or what we plan to do moving forward. We got into last year was more of, from a cultural standpoint, students were able to kind of learn more about other cultures of the students that are in classes with them. This year is more of life skills that we're implementing this year. Our schedule, the change in our schedule that now we're going into a second year of that. From a climate perspective, like students really seem more comfortable when it comes to lunchtime. Now being able to kind of breathe and stretch their legs a little bit, right? It was kind of jammed with the 3 lunches in the past. So going to 4 lunches was a huge improvement from us overall. and really like using social media presence. You know, many of the clubs that you mentioned that you see on here, they all have an Instagram page, right? And so like folks are getting on there, you know, they're communicating with other students there. On that, we have a huge Spirit Week coming up, starting tomorrow, that students are looking forward to, along with the rally and getting ready for Thanksgiving. So we're heading in that direction now, that students not only feel safe in our building, but also now like they want to be there beyond the time, the 2:30 time period. We've had added like our Big Brothers Big Sister program now, so you know we have close to 90 students that are enrolled in that and have a kind of like a one-to-one mentor with them. And these are for our ninth graders. So really seeing students that we would, you know, classify, whether some of them might be at risk, others of them, you know, there's some instability, but now having a mentor with them has been extremely helpful in that process overall. So we're moving in the direction to continue to improve on our culture and climate.
Thank you. And there's a lot of good in the vocal survey. You know, I mean, we heard about an overview of the vocal survey across the city, and one thing's for sure, most people love their teachers and the educators and the staff, so it's a tribute to your staff, and the numbers were good there as well. And also like to see how students have a more diverse friend group, you know, than when I was at Quincy High School, and people are much more accepting, so that's a tribute to the culture and the climate, I think, inside the school and within QPS. Is there anything in the vocal survey that you look at and you say, that's different from last year, or this is something that we need to work on?
Great question. I think overall, like there's, when I look at the vocal survey, me being a competitor, I'm speaking from the heart, right? You know, so it's unscripted, right? So it's one of those things where, you know, you want every student to feel safe in the building, right? You want everyone to have a trusted adult, right? And so even though there are improvements in the survey, which is great, like we're going up, right? That we're not settling, right? Where we're not getting to a place like, oh, you know, we reached a certain number, we're good, right? You know, like we want folks, you know, first of all, to ensure that we filling out the survey, you know, like truthfully of how they feel, right? We want to ensure not only do they fill the survey, but being able to answer or come up with answers of any problematic areas, go from there. So I think for us, when it comes to, you know, being our students feeling, again, a lot of it has to do with feeling, right? A lot of it, like, you know, there's one thing we can, as educators, put all the plans in place for our students to be successful. But if a student doesn't feel that way, right, that's a problem, right? And so, you know, again, we're trying to, I keep mentioning advisory, because outside of the realm from an academic day where there's teaching and learning going on, we are intentional in breaking up the monotony of each day to find time to just build relationships, right? Just have a time for our students and a trusted adult to be able to work through either life skills or get to know you or things like that, that we're prioritizing that because that's just as important as the AP exams in May, right? And so like those are the things that kind of really stick out to us when it comes to this. There's not a particular question on here right now that I would say that particular one, more so than ensuring that all of our students and staff feel welcome, safe, and respectful each day.
Thank you. And final question is, 12 months ago, you gave us your 2023, 2024 facility needs, and it looks like it's a cut and paste, so it gives us the appearance that nothing happened over the course of the last 12 months, because those are, say again?
So, yep.
Yeah, oh, a couple of things.
Yep.
We're done. So, I mean, it's
Yeah, it's still a need.
still a need.
Correct.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, that's an opportunity for us to,
And we will be moving all of these. facility things into the, what committee? Facilities. And I'm wondering if maybe we should have
Let 'em
these
do.
prioritized.
Yeah, say it again, I'm
I
sorry.
think we should have these prioritized, I mean, things that are safety
Is your
issues
mic on?
first. Oh,
Yeah.
my mic is not on. I'm wondering if maybe we should have these, if you could prioritize these things about first around safety and then what you think is the most important thing. It's a long list.
Yep.
There's also some really easy things to chip off this list that we haven't done for some reason.
So do you want to prioritize by the ease of it or prioritize
No,
on
by
the
the
need?
I think the safety and the
Okay,
importance.
okay, by the same, okay,
We'll probably still go for the easy ones, but
okay, absolutely. Yep.
So our goal is to come back next year and have it be a much smaller list.
Yeah,
So I take all of the maintenance requests, filter them through. You know, when you look at the school improvement plan, it looks like nothing was done. I can tell you that hundreds of work orders were opened and closed throughout the school year, right? So those are some big ticket items
yeah,
that we'd
yeah,
love
this
to
is the
see.
capital, whatever plan it is, a lot of this stuff.
Exactly.
Not the bike rack, that could just be.
No further questions. Thank you. Thank you.
It's Perdios.
Thank you. So first to say what you want your students to stay, you know, beyond the school bell. I feel like my children, my two kids that go there live at Quincy High. I feel like I'm there more times than any other place, day in and day out. So my kids have taken that to heart, and I appreciate all the opportunities that they have to feel at home there. So I want to start with that. Two of mine are there, and love it. I think the best way to go through the bunch of questions or comments I have is to kind of go in order by page here, so so I kind of keep myself organized. And I just wanted to talk about your goal reflection from last year's goals a little bit, page 6 to 9 or 10 here. And I wasn't on the committee when these were made or the last time you were here, so apologies for kind of feeling like I'm going back to older things, but it does seem like, to go to Mr. Guttrow's point, there's a lot of, you know, written curriculum map updates, that type of stuff, that doesn't really feel like it goes to the achievement of the student. It really kind of feels like internal kind of, you know, housekeeping sort of things that we should be doing on the outside. So I'm not sure and it seems like it's a lot more last year goals than going forward. It didn't seem quite as many going forward, but it sort of feels like an English department goal or a math department goal shouldn't be to get all the curriculum maps aligned. It should be, what are our student goals? How are we going to improve student learning and how to get there, as opposed to, you know, just kind of well, we sort of need to do this because NEASC asked us to, and it's a good, clean process to do, that things are aligned. But I really kind of think that that's separate, sort of. So, and I'm not sure if doing that would actually help the goals be met a little bit more, because where you have an ongoing kind of, you know, you're not going to hit a goal where it's an ongoing type process to update these maps. But, you know, if we want to improve, you know, English or math scores, that's something you can quantify and kind of explain how you got there, type of thing. And maybe the updating of the curriculum maps is one way to get there, but in and of itself, it doesn't sort of feel like it should be a department goal going forward. Just kind of my 2 cents on that one.
Can I just comment to that real quick? The
Yeah.
only thing we add to that is that last year, because we were we're still in part of the accreditation process, so we had the decennial visit. So one of the things that we wanted to implement was the 3 priority areas from that time. So our goals last year were really aligning to that, you know, from that point. So with this year's goal, I agree, like many of our departments have a goal specifically geared towards student and learning. But last year was a little bit because of the fact that it was a NEAS priority area, and we wanted to spend the time to be able to do that.
Right. Go ahead, Mr. Guttrow, if you want to jump in.
I think what Ms. Perdios was saying, those are output goals instead of outcome goals. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So they're kind of the internal mechanics that are seeking to help reach an outcome, and her ask was more about outcome. Does that make sense?
I think the outcome of make sure the school maintains its accreditation is pretty important.
Well, that could be
And
the
I think
outcome.
that NEAS thinks, and I'm not sure I believe, that this is the thing that's going to move students forward. I'm not sure I agree with everything that NEAS does, but that's why they do this, because they think it's going to improve student learning. But the school needed to, I mean, you couldn't ask the teachers to do everything. As we said, it was hard enough to do it as it was, but we were asking the staff to change their curriculum guides, their syllabi, their everything, and a map, and their assessments to match this process that NEAS wants for us to keep our accreditation.
Understood.
So I think that they had to do that. And I think NIAS hopes that that's going to, and it should, I guess, improve student outcomes if they're done well.
If you're clear on the direction and you know that folks are on the same page with the direction that we're going overall, then, but I do agree, you know, there need to be goals focusing on our student learning overall. So it's a both and, you know, to that thing.
Sure. Yeah, maybe one of those SMART goals could be, you know, overall aligning of curriculum maps, separate from the department goals, that type of thing. I'd love to see that going forward. And then a couple small little questions. The EL department goal for last year, this 50 strategies for teaching English language.
What page are you on now?
I'm sorry, page 6. The 50 strategies for teaching English language learners. I didn't notice the EL PIP program improvement plan. That team didn't really mention that. Is that something that is being used across the district, or is that where did that resource come from, and is that aligned with the program improvement plan for the EL?
So it was from that was a year ago, and that was specific to Quincy High School, so it wasn't something that the whole EL department took on. So that was specific to what the EL department at the time, the leadership of the EL department at the time, that was what they chose as a goal. So they're not doing that this year. And we're focusing on, as you know, the students meeting their proficiency targets.
Okay, yeah, no, I think that, you know, just to make sure we're using it across high schools and across, you know, just the whole package would be great. The music goal for last year, again, sorry for the questions on last year's, mostly because I wasn't here, so I'm just trying to understand a little better. You have evaluating students' sense of community and belonging within the music department as a whole. That's on page 7. How did you evaluate that? Was there a survey? How was that information gained?
I think it says at the end, Mrs. Purdy.
I believe they gave an assessment. Let me just read it.
Music fundamentals assessment.
But the evaluation of students' sense of community and belonging within the music department as a whole.
I believe that it was the questions in the initial assessment. So I believe they did a pre and a post assessment. And I do think that's actually across both schools because they split. So, you know.
Okay, so it wasn't academic assessment, it was a belonging assessment? Am I
I
understanding
think
that
it was
correctly?
it was a like a feeling of, you know, more like a social emotional, I guess I would say.
Okay.
Assessment.
And is that the same type of assessment that you speak of going forward for this year's musical? Is it more of a social emotional assessment than actual knowledge of music theory and concepts?
Yeah, I think it has actually both. I think it has music fundamentals and theory and concepts, and actually some questions on, you know, how they're feeling in terms of the actual coursework and the classes. And I believe it is, and I'd have to, what page is this year's musical? And I
This
believe
year's
it
is 22.
It has an initial and post-assessment.
Yeah.
And it's a self-assessment, so it's not given by the teacher. The students answer the questions on their own. So there's an opportunity to say, how do you feel about these content standards? How do you feel about how you're doing in this class? How, you know, and it's got a variety of self-assessment questions so they can reflect and then share that back with the teacher.
Okay.
And I believe that is what they're planning on using this year as well.
Okay. The science department goal, I'm looking at the old and the new compared to the new. It looks like your goal last year was to increase 2% and we decreased 8%. And this year the goal is to increase 2%. And I'm wondering what of the action steps moving forward are new or different that might help you to think that overcoming that pretty significant decrease again can reverse that course on that.
I think for the most, so for this one, you know, and a lot of times if you have a goal, you did not meet the goal, doesn't necessarily mean that we have to just change the action steps to get a goal, right? So we're, for the science department, as you can see, continued as we continue to evaluate over time. We want to make sure that we're taking all the necessary steps moving forward to meet that goal overall when it comes to an MCAS. So there are the action steps that are listed here through the science department It's a way to, we're going to continue to vein and really see if, again, with all the NEAS stuff that was going on in other areas, really see if this, the action steps that are incorporated moving forward are something that's viable for us to move forward in.
Okay, I'm just not sure, because now the MCAS requirement for graduation is not there, so students kind of caring about how great they do on it, I feel like it's going to be a less and less reliable way to understand whether students have progressed anyway. So I'm actually concerned about how overall, this is sort of going to be my last question, but I might ask it now. How will that graduation requirement removal impact how you assess growth moving forward if that's going to be a little more difficult to rely on students taking it seriously or taking it at all, right?
Yeah, I think when you talk about the MCAS at high school, it's a challenging benchmark anyways, because only the students who typically in the high school level, say for instance science, it's only kids who are currently taking biology. So you have many other classes that are happening. Biology is just one class that happens in 10th grade, but that is what this school is measured on. It's the same thing in English. We have many teachers, some of whom do not teach 10th grade, and we are measuring every single one of them on this MCAS requirement. So I agree with you that we have work to do, and I think it was brought up in terms of the scores, but I think there's AP tests, there's access to advanced coursework, there's all of these things, dropout rate, there's a chronic absenteeism, all of these things also contribute, and I get what you're saying about the content as well, but that's why it is important actually to have updated curriculum maps, because we do need to have benchmark assessments. We do need to have formative assessments, because we should not only be relying in terms of success on solely an MCAS test. And we do know, which is why this was initiated, is that there are students who are not good MCAS test takers. And that's not to make an excuse or to, as Mr. Ford said, minimize in any way, shape, or form. But I do think that there are project-based assessments. There are, like I said, the formative and the summative assessments that happen. And I think, kids can show us what they know in lots of different ways. And so I do think you're right that we're going to have to rethink once we know. It was very hard for them, and we talked about this multiple times. Once we knew that MCAS requirement, it's hard in general anyways to do a goal based on a test that only happens 1 year. So that's hard. And then for them to think about, and I talked to Mr. Gilbert about it as well, to think about like what is going to happen with this school improvement plan with these goals that are based on MCAS when we have no idea what this is going to look like in the spring. So I do think that's a reality, and that we might be coming back to you and saying like, we have to rethink how we formulate our goals, and working with the department heads and the high school leadership teams about how do we formulate the goals moving forward. I do think it's still going to be given. How seriously kids take it, remains to be seen. But so I do think, we're going to have to amend probably and rethink. It was really hard to do it right now on the fly with no guidance. Mm-hmm. So I give these guys a lot of credit for what they did. But I think you're absolutely right. I think we do need to look at that. But I do think that one of the things that I feel really strongly about, and I know Mr. Ford and Mr. Smith do as well, is like maybe it is time that we're looking at how we assess kids at the high school level, in general. And so I think, starting to have those conversations as we work to move forward is going to be really important.
Yeah.
So I know it's not
I should
100% an answer,
No,
but
that's exactly what I was thinking. I mean, even if you look at the new department, the art department, the CVTE goals, actually even the CVTE goal from last year, they're very specific. Like it was like a written statement. They wanted the CVTE kids to get a little bit better at writing. This year, it looks like they're focusing a little bit more on math. Mm-hmm. The art department goal, while I don't fully quite understand what that means, that's okay. I don't need to. I know they know what they're talking about, but I think that it's more evidence-based assessments and how they're tracking kids and measuring growth. So I think looking at some of those goals, you're going to have to get a little creative, I think, and
Yeah.
finding those skills that kids are working on and the skills that you can assess.
And then
would be
also, how
great.
does it carry over from year to year, right? So if you're an English or a math teacher, you
Right.
know, that those skills build, you know, on each other. And so how does that information carry from year to year to year? So we know that what's happening in English 9 is creating a good foundation for English 10 and English 11 and English 12, and that the students are progressing. You know, at elementary level and middle school, we have the map, you know, and we do use that a lot, you know, and so I think we have to start thinking about those kinds of things and making sure that those assessments, as they work on these curriculum maps, align from grade to grade to grade, and so that we can see progress over time.
For sure. Just moving on, I know I'm taking a bunch of time here. Page 18, I'd just like to delve a little bit more. Mrs. Hubley brought it up about the suspension rates. Without understanding what our suspension rate is now, it's hard to sort of understand. I mean, is it on the back here? Did I miss
in the
that?
back.
So I can take that because Mr. Marani and Dan Pacho and Chris Tierney, we have been poring over our SSDR, which is our discipline data. And so we are actually going to be presenting to you all on what is SSDR, how does it get calculated, what is reported by the state versus not reported by the state. So at our next school committee meeting in December, we're actually planning, we've been working already for weeks on this presentation. You know, we definitely heard the school committee that you want incident data, you want, you know, some more specific information, you want to better understand what happens, you know. So we're going to do a presentation on SSDR, and then in executive session, we do have actual data to share with you, and that you can, you know, ask us questions and we can have some conversations.
Okay, no, I can definitely save the questions for that. I just,
Yeah.
I guess I'm a little uncomfortable. I mean, there are cases where suspension is appropriate, right? So so that's kind of the conversation. I just, you know, to arbitrarily pick 2% when we're not actually sure what the offenses are, it feels like the cart before or the horse before the cart, or whatever that saying is. But maybe if we have a deeper conversation a little bit later, that might be appropriate for that. Page 21. What is a low floor, high ceiling math goal? What does that mean?
So that would be strategies that students with no experience can come in and start, so they're not completely overwhelmed and shut down right from the beginning. So they come in, they feel comfortable, they feel confident, and then it shows that growth that we talked about. So at the end of the lesson or the end of the unit, it has a high ceiling for those students, and they're achieving the goals that we set for them, but also there's a lower entry point, so all students feel included regardless of what level they are coming into a lesson.
Okay. The high ceiling for me still is a little confusing because it's not, I'm wondering how you're measuring what I'm taking from that is that higher achieving kiddos are able to make more growth. That's not what
Oh,
you're.
yes.
So
yes.
how is that measured? Because that wouldn't be shown by a 3% increase in meeting or exceeding expectations, because those kids were already meeting and exceeding expectations. So how is the high ceiling shown in that goal? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think I do. So I think that they're looking at, Mr. Gendron is looking at, you know, strategies for all learners. And so I think that that's one way that you can do that, because as Mr. Smith said, it provides access to, everyone can access it, but you can take it as far as you need to as a learner. So it might not necessarily show up as clear cut in MCAS, but it certainly could. If you're in exceeding expectations, we want you to maintain that, you know, and remain at that high level of performance. So I do think it's about, like, you know, just pushing kids beyond where they are, including advanced learners. So maybe the measurement isn't perfect for some more of your
It
advanced
might be just two
learners, but
goals, right? It might be
yeah.
two goals. It sounds like it might be two goals. One, working on that, and having the 3% increase, and that might be the low floor portion of that. So
Yeah, I
a
definitely
two-part kinda
think
goal.
it's I
makes
think it's a
sense.
good strategy,
Yeah.
and I
Okay,
think
that makes
it's
sense.
a lot of learners.
Yep, thank you. I may have sort of read or misunderstood that too. All right, and moving on, I think we're on, I think I'm going to pop over to page 32. So, and the only reason that I mentioned this is because I was reading it right after I was reading the English Learner Program Improvement Plan, and they had an impressive amount of PD for like everything, for EL staff, for family liaisons, and this just seemed like a smaller amount of PD, and I'm just wanting to ask if you guys feel like, is this enough PD that we're offering our educators? Do you feel like there should be opportunities for more PD, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I do feel that way.
Okay.
And this is primarily on the PD calendar that we have right now at this point. But yes, I do feel that way.
Okay. All right, so maybe looking to expand that where possible.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
that will be, we just need time.
Okay, yeah, that's great, thank you. Moving on to page 42. The classes that are 26 and above here of students, actually, it might be a question for maybe Laura or the superintendents here. What is our ideal range for high school? I know that we have kind of a stated ideal range for high school class size. Can someone remind me what that might be? Okay.
For high school.
Okay, so we really only we have 6 above that. Okay, yeah, I definitely don't want to make the assumption that because they're advanced or honors kids that they're okay with a higher, I still think that they benefit from a smaller class size, so, but maybe just because it's a niche, that might be what we're up against there. Okay, just to point that out. And then the facilities, I actually just want to add my emphasis to Mr. Ford's voice here. These main security camera systems, we have literally been talking about the updated security system in this building for like 4 years. I remember this being, when I was on here prior, this was something that was identified as it was going to happen 3 summers ago. It was going to happen, and this is really, really necessary, and it's something that I really think is a security risk, and it's something we know about. So if something were to happen, this is kind of on us. You know, we're somewhere along the line, we're not getting this done. So I think that needs to be a really high need to get that just done and checked off so we can say that we have the most updated security system that we can have. I mean, with everything going on. And then the second thing I wanted to add to that list that's really important, the auditorium lights and sound system. We use that auditorium for so many things that are not Quincy Public Schools students or that are not Quincy High students. We invite the public in for drama productions, for 'Tis the Season shows. We have people renting out that space, and the lights flicker, like they just flicker, like they would in, you know, and it's not a bulb, it's the actual system. And the sound system, there are a couple speakers that aren't working. I think that really needs to be a high priority because it's kind of the flagship place that we have our public come to see our events and these concerts and these drama productions. So I really just want to add my emphasis to those 2, in addition to all the others, but those 2 specifically that are kind of like dragging on, and that I wanted to make sure everyone was realizing the longer, bigger ramifications than just the effects on Quincy High students on those 2. And almost done. I have like 2 left. On these school needs, student Chromebooks and chargers. So there was a little discrepancy earlier, in an earlier meeting. We had talked about there being plenty of Chromebooks, but there kind of weren't enough at the high school. Was that kind of a miscommunication and we're kind of okay on that? Or are more Chromebooks actually needed in the system to support what Mr. Ford's asking for?
Yeah, so there were some Chromebooks that were being repaired which was one of the things that, kind of caused the backlog. But we do have plenty of Chromebooks. We've actually ordered a whole bunch more Chromebooks just to make sure that we have plenty of Chromebooks, because as new students move in, we need to just make sure that we have, some backup, or if they break. Because when you send them out to be repaired, it does take a little bit. So we try to repair them in-house when we can, but if we have to send them out, it does take a little bit, the turnover. So, so we just want to make sure we have a bunch on hand. So we did actually just order a bunch more.
Okay, so we're good on that. So check, we can have one thing almost done that we're right away there. And thank you for adding the additional staff that you could use there. I think that's an appropriate place to have this under the school needs for us to look at for budgeting. Who does attendance now? If you need an attendance officer, you have under school needs attendance officer for Quincy High. Who does that now?
We're in the process of, we have 3 district people that are our attendance officers. One of the needs that we have at this point would be have someone specifically for Quincy
I
High
see what
School.
you're saying.
Mr. Mulvey's going to
Yeah,
address that.
we actually have 4. There is 3 in-house and 1 independent contractor
Okay.
that we've hired. The 3 attendance officers obviously cover the entire district.
Right.
So it's obviously attendance is not just a high school need, it's a district-wide need, but.
So that was the ask was just someone for, okay, I understand now. Thank you. Sorry, I might have misunderstood that. Couple things on vocal and one last thing. A couple things on vocal. A couple things on vocal that stood out to me and just, I know you were describing, Mr. Ford, that it's kind of more of a cumulative feeling for you. There were a couple things that stuck out for me. Students respect one another. It was kind of 50-50 on that. And I think we saw that district-wide, I think, as well. But, I think the high school level, these kids are old enough that we should be able to make an impact here. That, we're not seeing, kind of tantrums like, younger kids or something. Like these are kids that should be able to show each other respect if they've, been in our system for 9 years, and they hear respectful, ready, responsible, all that stuff. So I'd love to see that improve. Again, most of it, I've been teased or picked on more than once because of my race or ethnicity. That's still 22%. Students with physical difficulties or learning difficulties are teased and picked on 33%. I mean, those are hurt. I mean, I feel pain when I think of a child that has a physical disability that 33% of the time may get teased for that. 40% of kids teasing one student. And then, so those worry me a little bit. So I'd love to see some improvement there or some programs that we could bring in to address that with the students somehow. Maybe with Mrs. Papil or something like that. I'd love to see that. And then the level of pressure I feel to perform well is unhealthy. And again, I think we saw that district-wide, but, almost 50-50 there. Because I worry about my grades, it's hard for me to enjoy school. That 70% agree with that. So I think there's a lot of stress and a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of peer interaction that we could be trying to work on. And I think that's your motto, right? Trying to improve that. But I'm just not sure we're getting there, and I'd love to see maybe just some extra support for you and some programs and stuff if there's a way to support you to make that better, to make some strides on that. And that's it. I know, there's a lot. I'm sorry.
So Mrs. Perdios has missed some of the stuff. We heard low floor, high ceiling stuff and some of the MCAS stuff prior to this, so she's really catching up, which is one of the reasons why she's asking so many questions. I don't know if we can find some other way to help with that, because she is catching up. I mean, we've heard a lot of this stuff before, and I know you're catching up, so I don't know if maybe if you could reach out to the superintendent before the meeting to get some of that information instead of trying to, because it's a little difficult. I mean, you need to have it, but it's a little difficult for us to all hear it again, especially because this meeting was scheduled to end at 7 o'clock, and we still have 2 plans to hear. And I really think that a lot of the stuff you're saying is valid, but some of it is just you haven't caught up to where we all are yet. So I don't know if that would be helpful or not, but I think it might be. What do you think, Mr. Mulvey?
Certainly, you can come in and we can meet separately and answer any questions that you have.
I'll keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a few, too, I'm sorry to say. I just want to say the MCAS situation, not your MCAS situation, but the MCAS situation is only going to deteriorate no matter what, because even though the kids are not going to take it seriously, we saw what happened in the early years when they didn't take it seriously, and unfortunately, our schools and our teachers are still going to be rated on that. So unless that whole situation changes, we're still going to have to go through proving, unfortunately, that our schools and our teachers are doing the right thing. And I know we're waiting for state guidelines on what the graduation requirements should be. And I know we could get information about SATs and AP scores and see how we're doing with that stuff. But there are different types of assessments, and I believe there are some MAP assessments at the high school. Am I wrong about that?
No, it goes up. Yep, there are.
So we might, because we
Could
love
consider
MAP.
that.
So we might want to look at MAP for the high school because it's really actionable and it's individual students and you're not waiting months and months for it and
Yeah,
maybe.
Mr. Marani and I can look into that.
Good. I mean, I think it would be worthwhile to just even reach out to the teachers once you have and say, do you think this would be valuable? Because we're going to have to do something. I mean, I think we have good internal graduation requirements, but if we want to be improving our students, I've been a proponent of MAP over MCAS forever.
Yep.
So I'm going to be really quick. On page 13, I really love your goal about chronic absenteeism. I think it's a reach, and I like it, and I'm going to hold you to it. On page 14, the lowest performing student goal, I really was happy to see that because those are the kids that we have. There's always going to be lowest performing students, even if everybody's an AP student. But I'm really glad to see you looking at those kids because those are the kids that really need the help. So I'm happy with that. I'm very excited about Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and I hope at some point in time, I don't want to make you come back, but I would like to have some feedback on how you think it went at the end of the year. It's a program that I love. I've seen it elsewhere, and so we can figure out some way to. Big Brother, Big Sister, oh, that's great. That would be great. The extended day stuff, as was said, is phenomenal. On page 41, I can find it. This is not really a question for you, it's more of a question for Erin, but I was looking at the populations and the percent of population kids who are participating in AP, and Mrs. Perdios and I had a conversation about this, and we were wondering, we hate to ask you for another thing, but if we could have a program improvement plan for the advanced programs, so that we could see whether or not
Sure.
those programs are having the results we hoped, because we were hoping that we'd get more minority kids into our AP classes. And it's, we may be, I mean, I didn't compare it to last year's, but I would like to just know if that's happening. So that's not a question for you guys, I'm sorry about that. On page 44, Mrs. Perdios referenced this, the additional teachers for Chapter 74. Are you hoping to be able to bring more kids into those programs? Are we holding kids out because we don't have enough teachers?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and they're full at this point, they're overly staffed, they're not actually, there's some questions about compliance overall because we have more and more students
Yeah.
in there at this point.
I would support that, greatly support that, because I think we're hoping to get more kids into the CTE majors. A one teacher shop is a very, very difficult thing to run anyway. When you look at culinary or allied health and they have the numbers to support each other, this is one teacher doing everything without even having a colleague to bounce it off of. So I think if we have a student need, we need to find a way to make this do. And remember, when they're in their CTE classes, they won't be in those other classes, so it might not cost all that much money to do it. So I would be really thrilled to see that happen. I don't know how we can support it, but I would love to. And on page 48, looking at the annual dropout rate, I still think it's really good. I really think it's good. I mean, extended engagement rate, I just think those numbers look really good, and I wanted to say that. And on page 52, so this question here, I had concerns about this question until I went back and looked. Some of these questions contradict each other. So one of them says, see if I can find it, it's something about I'm comfortable 89% of the kids are comfortable talking to their teachers, but then you look on this page and only 62% of them could talk to a teacher if they felt they needed support. But on this page, 89 said teachers are available when I need to talk to them. So,
I think the timing of when this is administered plays a big factor too. It's the last thing that they ask our students in MCAS. So you went through 3 cycles of MCAS and now asking about, how you feel in school is a little tough. So that's why we wanted to institute our culture and climate survey every 2 years, and we utilize that data a little bit more to kind of measure where we are as far as culture and climate. So this is part of the process, and we want to go through that, but a little bit more specific and intentional in asking some of these questions is important for us.
And on page 55, number 19. This happened last year, I know. Adjust individual grading practices over the school year with the aim of bringing down or eliminating contribution of things like homework, participation, extra credit, informative assessments to student averages. I mean, we just talked about adding those things as a different type of assessment, and now we're talking about eliminating them. So I'm a little concerned about why the English department is eliminating things like how often you've been in front of me.
Yeah, the goal for the English department has been really trying to pilot grading for equity overall in a grading system. Is something that we're taking a look at, overall. All of our department chairs were given resources about grading for equity. And so they've been kind of piloting. We did have a little bit of turnover in our staff, in our English department overall. So, fully staffed in the English department now, and trying to figure out, like, really take a deeper dive into this to see if it will be viable for our whole school overall.
And see if it's making a difference. I mean,
Correct.
To that too, I would say, and maybe it's the way that this is written makes it sound that way, but it's not necessarily about getting rid of homework or participation or those kinds of items. It's how the teacher uses it. So, like the idea that homework should be used as a formative assessment. So it shouldn't necessarily, whether or not you have a homework assignment every night and you do that homework assignment, right? Does that guarantee you an A? Do you have to master the curriculum in order to get an A, or do you have to complete your homework? So it's looking at things like that. Like, it's not necessarily getting rid of it, it's how they're using it to contribute to the grade. So I actually 100% agree with the idea behind it. I think it is a difficult, it's a harder concept, I think, at like the high school level, because I think that the way we grade is very traditional, it's very systematic. But I do think that when we look at homework should be for practice and to help students master the content. And so how are we using that as an assessment to check in and see where kids are at? And so that's more what it's about. It's not really getting rid of it.
Okay.
It's about how are you using it.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
I actually think they do a really good job about that. Just on your point there, I think they actually do a really good job of what Dr. Perkins is suggesting. Just as having two children in there, I really do think that there is homework in it, but I think it's used to check in on those tasks and not as, a punishment or, exactly, sorry.
Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion. Mr. Vergoli has something to say first.
Just real quick, I know that you're big on atmosphere in the school, but I'm really concerned about the 47% who don't feel like they're respected within the building. And then, not to finish on a down note, but 8 of the goals, the department goals, were not met, although some progress was met, and I'm concerned about that. So I hope we can make some progress going forward.
Absolutely. Thank you.
By Mrs. Hubley, seconded by Mrs. Cahill. It has to be from the committee. So, your program improvement plan is approved. And thank you very much for coming in.
Yeah, he's been here earlier than I was, and I wish, Yeah, we're always presidents. Yeah, we're always presidents. Huh? No, I didn't. But we're always going to be presidents. That's going to be known. But our again, it's what we are and what we say is both there together. So definitely, absolutely. All right, here we go. There it is. All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good idea. Good evening.
Hi, everyone. Ooh, sorry.
You can proceed. Thank you very much for coming.
Yes, sure. Good to go. Good evening, members of the school committee, superintendent, Dr. Perkins, and the SLT. I love North Quincy High School. Every single part of it. And I think what you'll hear from me tonight is the plan on paper is the plan on paper. You'll see it. But I want to speak about what North Quincy is and who North Quincy is. We went through our collaborative conference 2 weeks ago with NEASC, and they came. There's 6 of them that came. And over the course of the 2 days, they talked to kids, they talked to parents, they talked to teachers, they talked to nurses, and kind of everybody. And the vocal survey, as you know, is 1/4 of the student population. We're banking on 1/4 to kind of tell the picture of 1,519 kids. And when NEAS left, I met with them before they left, and they gave us a number of different commendations, things that they thought we did really well, things that came out in student interviews and parent interviews and teacher interviews. And I'm just going to speak about them just for a second. The first thing that they talked about was the pride that is the North Quincy community, that it spoke loudly, it spoke importantly to them, and they could see it. They could see it in action among the kids. They could see it in action among the teachers. The expectations that teachers have for students was inspiring to them. They felt like it was really something that stood out in their classroom observations, and they did, there's 6 of them, they all did 8, so 48 different classrooms, plus interviews. The collaboration among teachers was very, very strongly came across to them, especially the co-teaching model, inclusion model that we use. They couldn't not tell, they observed 7 classes. They could not tell in any of those 7 classes who the teacher was and who the special ed teacher was. And that's, to me, that's an amazing thing. They commended the school committee for the community service expectations that at both high schools, particularly at North, the partnership with Quincy College. And they spoke specifically about the Learning Center and the PASS programs, the 2 special populations that we house at North Quincy High School, which are both a very vital and important part of that. I wanted to, but it wouldn't be the appropriate time. We're doing a homeroom TV segment this week on our newly created unified basketball program. So that's for students in the Learning Center, along with 25 student volunteers that play games. And our last home game, the entire football team was in attendance, the entire volleyball team was in attendance, girls soccer, boys soccer, plus the drama kids. We had to pull a bleacher out so that we had enough seats. Our football players made signs for the other team. They went on their own, found the other team's roster, and the number of parents that came up to us afterwards and said, "This is just amazing. You know our kids' names. We're the away team, yet you're cheering our kids on as well as yours." It's just an amazing kind of thing. And what I was most interested in hearing from NEASC is what our students said about and what our parents said about our school. And the resounding sentiment was that our kids felt and feel like they belong at North Quincy High School. They feel like they're part of the school. They feel like they're valued at our school. They feel like that their uniqueness is celebrated. And there's not much more affirming when your kids and your students tell you that they feel like they belong and they feel like they're an important part of the school. Parents said the exact same thing. And so that comes just after the school improvement plan is written. And yet at the same time, when I look at our school improvement plan and I look at the things that we've done, all of those things are kind of underscored through NEASC and what they had to say about our school. Our scores are great. The 72nd percentile overall, so doing better than 71% of other high schools in the state of Massachusetts. When you look at our student groups, our high needs group is in the 91st percentile, so better than 90%. Excuse me, let me just find it real quick. I'm using my hotspot to connect because I can't connect otherwise. So it's just a little slower. But give me 1 sec, I'll find it. But you can see that in a number of our other subgroups as well. You see our low-income subgroup is 96%, better than 95% of other high schools in Mass. EL and former EL is 86%, which is interesting because our EL scores weren't great last year. We've had a significant increase in influx of new students, most of whom, and you heard Heather speak about it, most of whom are at very low fluency levels. And so we're really trying to push those students and move those students forward. But at the same time, the growth percentile for our EL and former EL subgroups are in the high category. So, there's a lot of encouraging data there. We met our ELA MCAS goal. We significantly outpaced the state in terms of exceeding and meeting expectations. Same in math and same in science. And our growth scores are significantly higher than most, both overall and in the majority of our subgroups. We're still we did not meet our English goal, as you can see. Poetry is a very difficult subject. We actually went through every single question and calculated that score of 69% last year. So anything related to poetry could have been constructed response, could have been selected response, could have been multiple choice. So we're going to continue with poetry because it is an area that our students struggle with, as well as writing. So that's kind of a combination kind of thing. Our math goal, we're still pushing to increase the number of kids that we move out of needs improvement and out of learning into meeting expectation and exceeding expectation. And I know there's been a lot of talk about MCAS and the graduation requirement going away. But at the same time, the expectation is, and the MCAS is supposed to measure whether kids meet the standard at the end of the course. And so whether there's an MCAS or there's not an MCAS, we're still wanting to make sure that our students can meet those grade level expectations by course, by subject, et cetera. Our AP, the number of kids that take AP classes at North Quincy High School is very high. Last year, we won an AP Access Award because the number of kids, minority students that were getting access and taking AP classes, we got an award from the College Board. They invited us again this year. We did not go to the State House because it was not as, kids didn't like the experience as much as we were hoping they were. But again, recognized for the number of, the amount of access our students have to AP classes. Our dropout rate is great. Our chronic absentee numbers did not move, 18.2 last year, 2 years ago, 18.2 this year. So we created a specific goal. We're looking to decrease that percentage by 5% using like a tiered approach. So tier one for everybody. We hold every Friday, randomly draw names of students who have perfect attendance, and then we recognize students that have improved attendance. They get a really impressive gift card to the school store. They get a free wrap. I know, pretty amazing. And a free drink too. And then we have a number of other things. We give away yearbooks, and there's a lot of other things we're doing. Tier two kids are kids that are kind of on the cusp. We've been meeting with parents, talking to kids about barriers, what's preventing you from coming to school, what things can we try to alleviate for you. And then students that are really struggling, tier three kids that need much more intensive. And that could be a number of different supports. It could be counseling supports, it could be therapeutic supports. As you know, we have a PASS program with kids that have significant social emotional struggles. So we're very intent on improving that. In terms of the number of opportunities our kids have, there's so many clubs at North Quincy High School. We have, I couldn't list them all. There's just so many of them. You can see in that table the amount of things that we offer. Our ROTC program is packed at 185. We can't take any more. Those guys are there 6 a.m. every day, stay until at least 4:30, Sarges all over the place. But it's really a shining example gives kids a great example of what civic responsibility is. The amount of volunteer hours and community service hours that our kids get is significantly more than the requirement. Some kids, last year, I think the top kid in ROTC had over 400 hours of community service last year. And that person was not just one, there were several that were right on that person's heels. And then there's drama, and there's ping pong club, and there's Asian culture club, and there's the Green Student Movement. In terms of family communication, I send a weekly notice every Monday to parents, trying to give them as much information as possible. We just started an attendance counts newsletter that goes out every 2 weeks, kind of giving parents resources about attendance, kind of talking about the barriers to regular and consistent attendance. We're trying to get kids to participate in the state's attendance, I forget the name of it, Attendance Matters. There's kids can write about their favorite teacher or talk about why they love coming to school. I think our art department has kind of latched onto that. Trying to get kids to write an extra essay it's not going all that well. I don't want to write an extra essay either, but I can if you guys want me to. But I think, in terms of family communication, we're trying to be as open as we can and communicative as we can. And I think when you hear parents say that we know everything that's happening at school, we're really trying to give them a glimpse into their child's classroom. And high school kids don't want their kids anywhere near school. They just don't. My kids don't want me anywhere near Weymouth High School. It's fine, I'll show up anyway, but you get the idea. But parents, I think, appreciate the lengths we go to communicate with them and give them information about how their kids are doing and what's happening at school. Because our students certainly are not going to do that. I was walking up the back stairs from the gym, from Hunt Street up to the 4th floor last Tuesday, the day that NEAS came. And we were running around trying to get coffee for them and get yogurt for them, and there's all sorts of things you have to do for them. And I was walking up the back stairs carrying a bucket of ice and a thing of coffee. And I stopped, I don't know why, because I do it every day. And it just hit me for a second that every day, 1,519 kids walk into that school. And every day, the teachers and the people that work there do everything they can do to help our students be successful. And that's a microcosm of this school system. I've worked in 5 different schools in QPS, all of which I've loved. And I think the power sometimes of the things that we accomplish every day for our students, whether it be collectively or individually, needs to be at the forefront in thinking about what we're doing every day. Because I think this school system just does it so well. And I think the people at North Quincy High do it really, really well. Thanks.
I'd entertain some questions from my colleagues. Mrs. Hubley.
Thank you so much. Thank you for telling us about North Quincy High School. In all of your speaking, I heard respect. That's what came across to me. I heard a lot of respect for your students and for your teachers and what's going on in the day-to-day in your high school. And I appreciate that came across.
My pleasure.
The ROTC kids are amazing. I hear it from parents all the time throughout the city in all different events that they're helping out with. Struck me years ago. I remember going to one of the banquets, and I want to say the cadet's name was Emily Lou, who had almost 1,000 hours of community service work. And she had done it by tutoring special needs kids on the half day. And that stuck with me till this day, that's the ROTC kids, that's what they do. And that is amazing. I love your plan. I love your, the clubs struck with me. I love that you gave us the the synopsis of what the clubs are about. That was very helpful. I loved being able to actually read what they were. The Financial Investment Club, that is impressive. I'm glad that you're offering that. And
Yeah,
the
special
caring,
speaker today. I think the credit union, somebody from the credit union came today.
that's amazing. That is such a great resource for the kids to have that ability to be able to go to that. Caring Hearts Club says a lot that you have that. That says a lot about your school. And the Curly Hair Club, I love that. I think that is amazing as well.
They wouldn't let me in.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
But thank you so much. That's all I had. I didn't have a
Thank you.
question. I just
Thank you.
wanted to comment. Thank you.
Mrs. Cahill.
Everything looks great. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, to everyone, you and your whole staff and team and everything. I have a question about, and this is for both schools and all our schools. So if there are kids who get to school on their own and maybe take public transportation, that might contribute to them not getting to school, do we offer any kind of, Charlie cards or things like that for them so that they have, so they can get to school if they need it? We do?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I think
Yeah.
that's an important piece.
Yeah, and the start of school is hard because the red line was down, so it's gotten much better now that it's back up. But I think individually, at every school I've ever worked at, I can't speak for all of the other ones,
Yeah.
but we would get M7 cards and M5 cards. Any kid that came, I've never not gotten one or called Erin or the superintendent or Maura and said, I needed two M7 cards because
Kids need it, yeah. Did you see, an issue with absenteeism during the train being shut down, the red line?
No, not really.
No, because they have the bus too, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we've been kind of on our kids to
Yeah,
get to school.
to make
It's
sure that
important.
they're there.
And with parents too. Somewhere along the line, it's become, I don't know, just seems like, we had that trend where nobody was, or less kids were coming. And we really need to get back to this is the expectation. School every day. we need to be there. And the first day I gave out gift cards, literally two girls came running down the hallway, like yelling, "Mr. Gilbert, I can't believe I won."
Yeah.
Because, they had such difficult time last year coming to school. And I think the sentiment was like, I can't believe you even recognized the fact that
That
we've
I'm here.
improved. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that was my only question, was mostly if we would make it accessible to them so that they can get there. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Beverly?
I know the connection that you're talking about. The kids feel it more. When I was there, I feel connected. I know the ROTC program is hearing that started in the next few years. I'm wondering if you feel he can be replaced by one person or.
Excuse me, I'm going to let the superintendent speak to that.
Yeah, I can talk. We're actually working, and Mr. Gilbert is working with us, with Allison Cox. We're trying to get more Air Force ROTC staff to possibly add a third if the ROTC is willing to pay for it, just because the need is there. The problem is the availability or the willingness of Air Force staff to become instructors in the ROTC program. So we are working with, and we got a number of candidates from the Air Force, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to restaff. As you remember, we had 2 instructors, a senior instructor and then an officer and an enlisted. We're trying to get back to that and add a third if possible. And I know the mayor is supportive of that as well as the principal, and he could use it in that building. It's such a popular program. So I'm hoping that with the corroboration of the Air Force, we'll be able to get there. But again, it's really, right now, we want to take them, and we have the ability to take them. We just need the staff willing to come. So
will that increase the numbers in the program?
we'd have to take a look at it, but it certainly would allow for that to happen. Yeah.
Anything else, Ms. Beverly?
No, just, the scores are incredible, and great place.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you. Ms. Perdios?
Thank you. Similar to what Ms. Hubley said, just, you can tell when you speak about the school how there's just, you feel it. It's a real sense of pride and appreciation for the staff and the students. And that's, I think I think you can feel that. I think that's kind of infectious when that's helpful in creating that culture of belonging. And I think that goes a long way. So I appreciate that. And I really do feel like I learned more about North Quincy and at least how proud of it you are tonight. So that's great, even the stories you shared. So I appreciate that. And I also appreciate the specificity in your goals. I think that that's actually going to be really helpful when those goals start to become maybe less dependent on the MCAS scores. I think the way you have, like in English, focusing on poetry and writing, math, geometry, congruence, which I don't even know what that is, but but identifying those specific things and measuring those, I think that's a great way of going about it, and I think that's going to be helpful for you going forward in developing those goals for where we go after MCAS not being that requirement. I really liked how you had a math goal, and then you had a math department goal. So similar to, we were talking about that for North Quincy, like having your organizational goals be kind of your department goal, and maybe just the math goal is student outcomes, so that you kind of separate that out.
Yep.
But there's still that student outcome piece, which I appreciate. Can you talk about, for a while there, I feel like at a previous school committee meeting, we were talking about just some large class sizes that you had. Were we able to address those with some staffing or some moving around of some staff at all, or do those larger class sizes still remain from earlier in the school year?
A few of them, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, some kids have moved and dropped down. Some kids, you think they want to do advanced, and then they get into the advanced class, and it becomes a bit much. So some of those numbers have gone down. Our school is continuing to grow. So we don't have, but those numbers are lower, and all of them, the larger ones are advanced classes.
Yeah, for sure. Just a couple more things. Want to add my voice to your auditorium renovation, the need for that. Every time I go in and sit in there, I bang my knees, and I'm not I'm a pretty small person, and it's hard to get in and out of those rows and those seats. So just adding my voice to that. And your vocal data, I think for the most part, it looked good. I still see that whole the pressure, the anxiety, the stress of performing well, and I think students are just feeling that stress about and that stress kind of takes a toll on their enjoyment of school. And not that you have to enjoy every single day. So there are going to be some days that are really stressful, but I'd love to see just some kind of program maybe for both high schools to just kind of address stress and maybe some strategies to handle that, management, time management, whatever it might be, just knowing that if you have like an athletic outlet, sometimes that's really helpful, just to kind of get yourself away sometimes and take a break from the stress. And then just seeing a couple, although less, still students with learning or physical disabilities teased 25%. It's not as high, but it's still something maybe just to watch. My heart breaks for those kids that might be feeling that way. So I think it's great, and the ROTC program, absolutely shining star. Not your particular problem, but I would love to see that also. The kids at Quincy High, especially, where we're having some trouble getting kids into North Quincy for enrollment purposes, we're kind of limiting that ROTC program to just those kids that are living in that end of the city, and that worries me. That we're not, making that opportunity available to kids in the other end of the city too. So I think if we do add more, instructors, maybe we look at that, or we look at some way to have those kids from the southern side of the city still be able to access that ROTC program, because it's amazing. Sarge does a great job, and you guys do a great job supporting it there. So just wanted to add that about the ROTC. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Bertios. I'm going to echo what she said. I know that years ago we had an ROTC program at Quincy High School, and I think maybe there should be some, if we're going to have 3 instructors, maybe one of them could be at Quincy High School. So I think it was a successful program for a long time, and it became less successful, but I don't think it was because of the students. So I have a couple of quick questions. On page 8, I was looking at your reflection of your goals from last year. And the Reading the World initiative, I know that early on in the pandemic, I had been involved with the group that was looking at titles. And I just had a question for you that you may not be able to answer now, but if I could get the information.
Sure.
Who chose the 9 books And what was the process for choosing them?
I don't know. I don't know. That was done before I.
You can get
before-
that for me.
Okay.
I don't need to know it right now. On page 16, the social studies thing, I love, love, love that civics goal. I really do. I think that's really addressing the new frameworks. And I'm excited to see what kind of projects they are. Hopefully, we will see that at some point in time, because I think it's an incredible need
Agreed.
everywhere. So I'm thrilled with that. On page 18, the CTE goal I was a little concerned about for a couple of reasons, but one of them, when you start talking about the school's code of honor, I looked on the website, I searched it on your website, I could not find your code of honor anywhere, so I don't really know what the value of that code of honor is to the CTE students. So I just don't know what it is.
Yeah,
So maybe we could get that information too.
absolutely. Yep.
I was very happy to see the dean's goal on page 21 with the 5%.
I wanted 10, but I wanted 10, but
I wanted 10 too, but I'm happy with 5. And hopefully we'll get there. And I think if this, everything else, I have no other questions. So I entertain a moment to accept it by Mrs. Cahill, seconded by Mrs. Hubley, and you're all set. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Dan.
Thank you.
And before, you can leave. Before,
You want a break?
no, I don't want to break. Okay. I just want to reach out to you, Superintendent, for a question I have that may be better answered by Mr. Segalla and Mr. Mullaney. But I'm looking at the number of students in each school, and I'm looking at the supply list. And North Quincy has 47 more students than Quincy High, but they have $53,000 in their supply list. Quincy High has $42,000. So I want to know what that's about. It may be a typo. And I don't want you to tell me that's because Quincy High gets Perkins money, because it doesn't cover the same stuff. So just would like to, it's not, I'm just saying, they might say it's Perkins money, but so it's not going to work for me if they say that. Because Perkins money does not cover, that does not
verify.
cover pens, pencils, paper, glue, photography paper. You can't use Perkins on consumables.
No, that should be equipment, though. It
Yeah,
should be label
right.
equipment.
But for some reason, this school has
Yes.
more than $10,000 more in their supply line with 47 more students.
Yeah, we'll check, look into it.
Nothing to do with you.
No.
Yeah, yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Segalla.
Thank you, Ms. Liebman. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure tonight to share and highlight Quincy's Career Vocational Technical Education's 24-25 Program Improvement Plan. Our Career Vocational Technical Education program provides practical instruction and valuable intellectual content alongside academics. North Quincy and Quincy High foster a stimulating environment where traditional programs exist side by side with cutting-edge 21st century competency-based career pathways, 19 to be exact, including automotive, business, carpentry, criminal justice, culinary arts, design and visual communications, early education and care, electrical, engineering, fashion technology, film and television production, healthcare technology, IT, metal fabrication and joining technologies, as well as plumbing technology. Approximately 1,360 students are currently enrolled in our Quincy's Chapter 74 programs, including 363 students participating in Freshman Seminar, our exploratory program. Our total enrollment of 1,360 reflects an increase of approximately 60 students from the previous year. Our vocational programs are industry certified, have strong business partnerships, and a variety of post-secondary initiatives, including articulation agreements, CVT pathways, dual enrollment, and early college high school. I'm pleased to share that 75 vocational students are currently enrolled in our early college program. We encourage our students to take an active role in their own education. It is our hope to send our students to the world of work, armed forces, or post-secondary education with the necessary skills and knowledge for long-term success. Staff and students have the opportunity to explore current industry trends in collaboration with our community business partners, our CVT Advisory Board, and General Advisory Board. Through this collaboration, our competencies and technical vocational teaching areas are guaranteed to be industry-specific and meet industry standards. Quincy CVT staff members are trained, experienced, and state certified in the career field they teach. Our educators deliver instruction in safety and health, technical, embedded academics related to subject matter, employability, career readiness, management, entrepreneurship, as well as technological skills required for workplace success. Our vocational programs offer multiple educational resources for all students, including school-based and work-based learning initiatives, including job shadowing, co-ops, apprenticeships, internships, clinical placements, live work in technical areas, community service learning, as well as employment experiences. I'd like to begin with reflection of our 23-24 team goals highlighted on page 6. I'm pleased to report that each of these goals have been successfully completed. These goals included the utilization of our writing prompt, My Career Vocational Education Experience, including the rubrics for Quincy's Senior Career Portfolio Initiative. In support of our high school school improvement plan for our social emotional learning, the implementation of a variety of character development strategies, including empathy, ethics, and growth mindset, have and will continue to be integrated in our CVT programs and curriculum. The increase of non-traditional pathway opportunities for high school students. Our CVT support liaisons, Rich Ragusa and Brandon Cunningham, continue to do a great job with the promotion and awareness of non-traditional careers via classroom presentations and activities, Military Mondays, Women in the Trade Summits, and so much more. We've provided students a variety of additional curriculum enhancements and educational opportunities. These enhancements complement our CVT programs. Our vocational program advisory team goals were met as well, including our required annual program advisory team report. And finally, specific members of our program advisory team presented a series of relevant and innovative lessons, hosted a site visitation to their workplace or secondary institutions for our vocational students. Next is our 2024-25 CVT goals. Goal 1 on page 8. Quincy CVT team will review and realign the updated Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education CVT frameworks by 2024. I'm sorry, by June 2025. Those frameworks are 2024 approved by the department. Over the course of this year, staff will review and realign pacing guides, program course descriptions in their syllabi. Goal 2 on page 9 will continue to increase non-traditional pathway opportunities for high school students to ensure success beyond graduation, and that's a continuous goal. Goal 3, you'll notice on page 10, during the 24-25 school year, team members will continue to provide students a variety of additional curriculum enhancements and educational opportunities. These curriculum enhancements complement our CVT programs. We're proud of these traditional initiatives, including job fairs, fashion show, Innovative Engineers Capstone Project, National Business Honor Society, the Tiny House Project, DECA, Skills USA Chapter, which is just reestablished after 4 years, Women in the Trade Summit, CNA Pinning Ceremony, and the Credit for Life Fair, just to name a few. The program advisory team, our goals are also continuous from the previous year. They include, again, continuing our preparation for the program advisory team report that's presented to you, the members of the school committee, in the spring. Goal 2 is on page 16 to list program advisory team members, once again, to present relevant lessons and visitations to the workplace or post-secondary institutions for our CVT students. In regards to professional development on page 16 through 18, staff continue to participate in a variety of PD initiatives, including civil rights and student records confidentiality training, Teach Point evaluation systems training, our core indicators review of populations, our updated CVT curriculum frameworks, and our professional day of learning. Quincy Public Schools Professional Day of Learning, which was held on Tuesday, November 5th, provided all staff the opportunity to enhance and support their craft and enroll in a variety of quality PD and training throughout the day. A variety of optional professional development and training opportunities were available to vocational educators, including Heart Saver, CPR and AD training provided by Brewster Ambulance. Building a culture of student leadership was presented by Stuart Gordon, appointed to lead. Mental health in the workplace, provided by OSHA and Fitchburg State University, and the Power of Storms was presented by Erin Perkins, Superintendent of Old Colony Regional Technical High School. You'll find that detailed descriptions in your appendices at the very last handout. It's in yellow. And it was a terrific day, certainly by all. Finally, in the appendices, beginning on page 19, you'll find a variety of CVT documents, a program listing of our student credentials and certifications, and that's the pink handout. Our core indicators review, 24-25 program advisory team documents, including program team memberships, our invitations, flyers, and agendas, which are in green. And again, you'll notice the yellow handout that, again, lists those PDs optional for our CVT staff. At this time, I would entertain any comments or questions.
My colleagues? Mrs. Cahill.
I have to say, one of the things that I think you all do really well is build your relationships with people in the private, business, state, all the different sectors to get these kids the experience that they need. And that's important, isn't it? Like you said, bringing their experience to the real world. I'm looking at your, the certifications. So if it has the check marks, for an example, like HubSpot, social media marketing, that the kids earn those?
They do.
Are earning them. So if there's a check, that means it's something that they are actively earning during.
is correct.
Okay, so that's great, too. I really don't have much to say, but thank you for the work, and I do, just by watching and kind of interacting with kids on different levels, and, I know that there's been interns at the chamber who've done a great job, who come to work, who do a great job, they're diligent, they're committed, and I think that's a reflection on what you do every day. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Hu, we are good? Everybody else? Mrs. Perdios?
I just had, and maybe it's one of the questions because I'm new, but so for the high school school improvement plans, there was specific, like there was an English goal, there was a math goal, an art goal, music goal. Was there ever any attempt or desire to go into some of the programs and kind of do program-specific goals in here, or was it? Do you find it easier or better to evaluate growth and success of the program at a higher level? And would that be helpful or hindering, or if you could just speak a little bit about
Sure.
that?
Yep. These goals here are based on compliance for Chapter 74 program in general. And so I think you're referring to teachers, and they said their personal and professional growth by their program.
Right.
And certainly, we meet with staff throughout the year. We meet twice a year to review their goals and discuss curriculum enhancements, their advisory team, and such.
Okay, so
We
those
do-
would be found in the school improvement plans under the CVTs in the school improvement plan, but this is more the higher level.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, thank you for the explanation, I appreciate that. Thanks.
I have very few questions, Mr. Segalla. On page 9, that's not a question. The support liaisons seem to be doing a great job. The CTs, and they're free. Are they still free?
Yeah.
The CVT support liaisons?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, the city is.
Yeah. They're doing a great job, Mrs. Lebo. They really
Yeah,
are.
The city is
I'm sure you
paying
was.
it.
And on page 11, I'm really pleased to see Deckers coming into the
Yes.
schools. It's a great program. Credentialing is amazing. It really is amazing. I have one question about that. I heard, and you probably heard too, and it could not be true, but is the state no longer going to allow the early education and care students to get that state certification?
I haven't heard that.
Comprehensive directors are going to talk about it tomorrow morning. It's on their agenda, so. That's
I'll
what
be on
somebody
the call.
said.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what somebody said, so maybe I'll see you there. Non-traditional, I'm looking at your core indicators for this year, and I'm looking at the non-traditional enrollment. What is the target, do you think? I mean, I think it's pretty good. Our numbers look really good.
State target or our target?
What's our state target?
The state target is good, but we've been increasing our target.
I know, our numbers look
Even though
pretty
it's-
good.
it's
The
below.
non-traditional stuff, it's lower than the state would like,
Right.
but it looks pretty good.
Well, that's due in part of our CVT support liaisons. They're in classrooms. They're
Right.
creating, presenting lessons and activities with our
Right.
kids and doing a lot of recruitment.
Yeah. I think the numbers look good. I'm concerned about the science proficiency grades. I mean, across the board, I guess, I'm concerned about those. But I'm wondering if at some point in time, maybe the science department head or some science teachers could work with these. There's a lot going on at Quincy High right now and at North with NEAS there. But maybe look at their curriculum and see where they could help with the science stuff. Because they're all, most of them are science-based. Most of them are science-based.
We'll begin with, through our professional development, to do that, to explore and dissect these scores so that we understand before we begin to set our goals, if that's okay.
Yes, oh, absolutely. I just think that it might be some way to address that, but, and that's all I have to say. Thank you very much. I love the advisory committee membership. I looked at that. To Mrs. Cahill's point, we're doing a great job of getting our community in. The right people are in those roles, and I'm thrilled to see that. The advisory committee work looks terrific.
There you go. Thank you.
So thank you to them and to the teachers who are facilitating that.
Thank you.
Motion to approve by Mrs. Hubley, seconded by Mr. Bergoli. You have to. It doesn't matter. Oh, I'm sorry, you're in teaching and learning? Mr. Bergoli has approved all of those. No. Okay, motion to adjourn.
Oh, we have one more.
Erin.
Sorry, I just have one more thing. So I just shared with you, it's that time of year that we need to, every 2 years, we have to update our bullying intervention and prevention plan. So just very quickly, I just shared with you a timeline. I won't read through it, but our goal is, I think, to have it fully implemented at the end of February. We will be collecting, a requirement of the plan, as you know from last time, is to collect stakeholder feedback. So we have, in the timeline proposed a bunch of different ways that we're going to be doing that, meeting with PTOs, holding a district-wide meeting, and then presenting to you all at your meeting, prior to collect feedback. We'll also have a public comment period, and we're working on a Google form. So if parents don't want to participate in an actual meeting, they can also definitely fill out, the feedback on a Google form. So we'll collect all of that. We'll share it with you. We'll collect your feedback. And then hopefully the goal would be at the end of February to update the plan for the next 2 years. So just wanted to let you know that that's coming down the pike.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn by Mr. Bergoli. The Teaching and Learning Subcommittee is adjourned, and
Is that me?
Yeah.
I'd like to call to order the Wednesday, November 20th Policy Subcommittee. We have a quorum. There are school committee policy review, 2 items, 9.2, the school year, 9.3, the school calendar. And I wanted to defer to Laura. I think Laura, it was a consolidation, right? Could I do that?
Yes.
Which one is
which one is she? She's
right
the one she
beside?
always is.
Yes, there we go. There you go.
Okay, thank you. So the first page what you provided is the current school committee policy, which is in 2 sections for the school year and the school calendar. And I did do some research. The second page is what the Mass Association of School Committees has as a recommended policy, which it appears that most school districts, because many school districts have their policy book on the MASC site,
Yep.
are using that. I also did send out an email to the school committee clerks group that I'm part of to ask about, because specifically it had been asked about if other towns have language saying the school district will only observe state and federal holidays, and no district responded that they were doing that. My understanding was that Sharon was going to do that, but it looks like they've stepped back from it. Their calendar was amended in August to add back in the holidays they had taken out.
And those holidays were?
Those were that were Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Good Friday. And I believe they may have added something for Diwali too at the same time, so, because Diwali was a Friday this year. So they, so I got one response from a clerk in another town who said, well, a lot of districts have taken away Good Friday, but that's not necessarily a policy. And I said, well, in our case, it's actually written in the current school committee policy that Good Friday is a holiday, aside from the whole contractual, issues. So I'm just presenting you with this. This is the information that you requested that I gather, and you can discuss, where you'd like to go with it.
So the changes, Laura, to the existing,
The mask policy is pretty much completely different from what we have.
Yeah.
Because the existing policy, the school calendar part predates education reform. The 9.3 is from 1990, and then 9.2 hasn't been updated since 2006. So for whatever reason, MASC thinks it's important that we specify, about the number of days and the number of hours, even though we have been observing that all along. But they're recommending that, that we have that specifically stepped out.
Any discussion? Mrs. Perdios?
Go to your committee first.
Oh, yeah, committee first.
This
So
is,
that's,
this is not a meeting of the whole, Mr. Guttrow.
It is, it is,
It is?
yes,
Oh, okay.
because that was requested.
we'll go with Mrs. Lebo first, then Mrs. Cahill, then we'll open it up.
No, I'm,
You had nothing?
What I think I would like to see is
I want to make sure.
incorporating both, incorporating the MASC calendar, 185 days, 180 days, all that. I would also like us to, this would be my own opinion, to take politics out of the calendar discussions every year, is that our school sessions shall be held on legal, federal, state, and municipal holidays, so that we can secure and make sure that we're meeting our 180 days in the classroom, and that we are observing federal, state, and municipal holidays. So that's kind of what I want to say. The other thing I'd like to change, I'd like to see change maybe in the 9.3, is they said that we should have approval of a calendar by June 15th, which I think maybe is late
Right, and
for,
and it's in here, oh, it's not, I'm sorry, but in a lot of the towns, they say February 1st. They
Yeah.
use the mask.
and that might be
We
too
used-
early.
We used to
Did we?
do the calendar by February 1st, because
Yeah.
people start calling. and
Well,
asking
that's
about
what,
the
that's why,
vacations.
I think June is too late
Yeah,
for
June's
people. They have to
definitely
get daycare, childcare, all that kind of stuff.
March 1st, maybe March 1st is reasonable, but we did used to
Yeah.
just do it in January.
So I think that, those are my suggestions. Incorporating the MASC language. I would like us to, and we also have shall continue as provided for in the calendar fixed by the school committee, I would say approved by the school committee. And then, the Good Friday discussion isn't something we can really have right now until contract negotiations, so that's something that we couldn't even change if we wanted to at this point.
So do you want to keep the provision where it says school sessions begin on the Wednesday following the first Monday of September?
I like that, but,
Yeah.
that's
Any
the
objection?
discussion, if anyone feels.
Mrs.
differently.
Lebo, then I'll open it up.
I don't have any objections. I'm not sure that Mr. Bergoli wants.
To what? To,
I mean, there is some, never mind. I have no objections.
Okay.
no objections to what?
No objections to say
Just to
that the school will start,
striking the language
Just
in the
the
second
school-
paragraph,
the
9.2.
school session shall begin on the Wednesday following the first Monday of September.
Well, to speak,
And
just to speak to that, I brought that up.
Wait,
before.
let me put you on. Go ahead.
I brought it up before when the Labor Day is so late, and it puts us in a situation where we're extending the school year, because we don't start before Labor Day. And it just hamstrings.
I know, I think that we survey parents and teachers.
I know.
and nobody wanted to do it.
But no one likes change. No one likes change.
Everybody likes that last one.
Mrs. Lebo, what about the federal, state, and municipal
Yes,
language?
I'm very happy adding that too.
Okay.
This says what?
It would be on the 9.2, it says no school sessions shall be held on legal,
Holiday.
federal, state, and municipal holidays. And those will be the holidays that we observe when the calendar is being set.
We're adding that to two.
I would suggest adding
So,
it.
so the only motion on 9.2 is to amend it to add legal, federal, state, and municipal from committee members. Is that accurate?
And then,
And then in 9.3 to say move June 15th to March 1st?
yes.
Are you agreeable with collapsing the sections, like what Mask
We'll-
is
we'll get
recommending
into
is it doesn't need to be
discussion.
two different policies?
Putting it in 9.2 or
Everything can
9.3.
be in this one policy.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
So I can draft,
And we're going to add the, when it should be delivered by,
yes,
beginning of March.
say, March 1st, I
March
think
1st, yeah.
that's reasonable.
So Other members of the school committee outside of the members of teaching and learning, Mrs. Perdios?
So before we go too far down this path, the mask policy here, which you guys, other of my colleagues have really wanted to go with the mask recommended policy. So it's pretty general, and it lets us every year kind of look at items like what Mr. Bergoli is saying about Labor Day. It lets us talk about Good Friday. It lets us talk about Lunar New Year. It lets us look at demographics, see if there's anything different. I think the generalness of it is actually as our policy, rather than putting all the specificity in it, it would actually give us a little bit more, would actually be better than kind of having the Wednesday following, because if for some reason we wanted to change that, we'd have to change the policy. But where this, it gives us a little bit more freedom, I think. So I actually really like the mask recommended policy the way it is. And then we can certainly make all those decisions of what you, Mrs. Cahill and Mrs. Lebo are suggesting year to year. We could just kind of talk about that when we have our calendar that comes before us. We can have those discussions. But I don't think it's necessary to put the Wednesday following the first Monday of September. I don't think it's necessary to put all that in there, because the superintendent, as it says, will prepare the calendar and submit it to us, and that will kind of, he knows that that's sort of our policy, or our best practice, that we do that. So when he brings it to us with the expectation that it would probably be that day. So I actually like the way the mask is written. The only question I have on the way it's written is for number 3 here, where it says secondary schools will operate. Do we need to say anything in there, because seniors actually go less days? So I just don't know if we should be putting something in there to cover ourselves with 12th graders actually don't have to abide by that. So that's one item. And then my other item with the mask recommended policy is, do we have parent conferences on our calendar? Because this says that we should be stipulating the days for parent conferences. And I think we may want to take that out, because I don't think we're actually ready in February to say when our parent-teacher conferences would be.
Yes.
So I would strike that from it.
Where is it? What number is it?
The very last sentence here, where it says "and parent conferences," I would just take out "and parent conferences," because I just don't think we have that ready. So those would be the only changes that I would make, and I would support just doing the recommended policy and having those discussions year to year based on our population and the calendar, the way things fall.
Mrs. Hubley?
So I agree with Mrs. Perdios with adding the senior days on there, just to clarify that, because that should be in our policies, clarified. And I agree taking off the parent conferences if we're not going to have that on the schedule. But I also do agree with Mrs. Cahill in adding those changes. And we've had those things in our policy for years, and we always have conversation anyway. And if we wanted to have a survey of the parents and at that time change what we're doing, we're well able to do that. We've done it every year. We always have the conversations, but we still have it in our policy. And I think just having it in there lets parents know that that's when it's going to be. The first day of the school year is going to be the Wednesday after the first Monday. And if we're going to change it, then we give them ample notice that we are going to change it. But otherwise, it's in the policy that way. So I agree with that.
Mrs. Lebo?
Mrs. Lebo?
I just
Sorry.
want to reach out either to Mr. Mulvey or Dr. Perkins. The senior issue is defined by the state.
You on?
I am clear. Yes. The
Everybody-
senior issue is defined by the state. The state tells you how many days maximum seniors can get out before that. So it's not a bad idea to put it in, but it's actually a number of days. Didn't used to be.
What would you put for language?
I would just say, based on the state, something, whatever. See, I would say, it's good to put it in there. just so
Yeah,
people
but
don't
how-
think we're
but-
doing something.
Specific,
How would you-
specific language.
Yeah.
They go 168 days. or
For the
something like
seniors,
that,
yes. Put
So-
that in
and
there.
there's specific language. We
I'm
can-
surprised
I can
it's
pick
not
that
in
up
here
from the
already.
DZ website.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other discussion? I assume the next steps will be, Ms. Owens will take into consideration everything discussed tonight, come back with the revision, we'll talk about it at a subsequent meeting. Mr. Mulvey?
I just wanted to make sure that it's not just Good Friday that we're talking about, it's the half-day before Thanksgiving, and then the day following Thanksgiving is also not a state or federal holiday, so those days are also.
Okay, so it would mainly be the day after Thanksgiving. The half-days don't mean that much to us.
But it's the day following
So
Thanksgiving
we should
as
have to
well.
have that in there.
That would have to be in there as
It,
well,
it should.
as an exception to
The policy.
the policy.
Mrs. Perdios?
If we didn't add the municipal federal holiday line, we wouldn't have to get into any of that. We could just talk about that year to year and not have to have the Good Friday conversation where that impacts bargaining and different things like that. And it just sort of feels like if we just don't mention that, we actually have more, I think it would just be better for us. Point one, and point two would be, instead of saying school session shall begin on the Wednesday following the first Monday, can we just say the Wednesday following Labor Day, the Wednesday after Labor Day? Can we just say it like that so it's just less confusing? I feel like whenever Labor Day is, it's just, people know. I just feel like the
fine with
first
me.
Wednesday, the Wednesday after the first Monday, everybody, we kind of
It's
typically
fine.
say
We-
that
we
as
can say
Labor
Labor
Day.
Day.
So maybe we could just make that a little clearer and say the Wednesday after Labor Day. But I don't think we need to get into Thanksgiving, day after Thanksgiving. That will be in what the superintendent gives us. So if we didn't say any of that,
Policy's
Policies.
important. You have to have a policy. That's what that's our guideline. And what happens is, if you don't have a policy, and this is why, in my opinion, the federal, state, and municipal, we're not going to have political discussions every year on holidays, making holidays, not making holidays. You know, where everyone's culture, everyone's religion, everyone's situation is as important as anyone's. And if it's a federal, state, or municipal holiday, we use that, we follow it, and that's in our policy. And we don't have to have back and forth every year for the calendar.
but you will still have back and forth every year on the calendar because people can still come and ask us to look at it every year. They can ask us to change our policy.
Yeah, but
And-
we won't, because we have a policy.
So you're right now wholesale saying we'll never give Lunar New Year off.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying federal,
Setting the
state,
policy,
and
you
municipal.
are.
If somebody does a Lunar New Year municipal or state or federal holiday, then we observe it.
I don't agree with that.
Mrs. Hubley?
I was going to say, what this says to me by making these changes is that it is putting our importance on education and not the holidays. That's what this is saying to me. By having the numbers in here and the laws in here and what the state is saying and the days, it says that education is important to us, and that's where we're putting our priority, and that's what that says to me.
Mrs. Lebo?
So my question is, to the superintendent's point about the day after Thanksgiving, do we have to put in election day?
That, if it's the committee's intent to have that day off every year, yes.
What
Is it
about
our
the week
intent to have,
vacations?
Is it our intent? I think it's the mayor's intent, because he has to use the schools now.
Yes, he would need to use
So
the schools.
he doesn't want school in session during the November election. So I think we're going to have those two things in here, so it's easy enough to add the rest of it in.
What about holidays, though? Because, so if we're saying we're only not having school for federal, so the week between Christmas and New Year's isn't a federal holiday or anything like that, so nor is February break or April break.
So maybe we don't have to put those in for anything.
School vacations?
Maybe we don't have to put in either election day or the day after Thanksgiving. Maybe we don't even have to mention those if we don't mention school vacation weeks.
Well, I just think if we don't say it at all,
There's a
we will
distinction.
get the calendar and we can talk about it every year, which
We can
is
talk
really
about it
what
every year
we should
anyway.
do.
We can
But-
talk, we can't talk about the school vacation, I guess we could.
Mr.
But Ms. Cahill
Superintendent?
was saying that we wouldn't have to talk about it anymore.
Mr. Superintendent has a distinction?
So with regard to the day after Thanksgiving, and Good Friday, right now, those are all paid holidays for all of our staff. The election day is a paid holiday for most of our staff, not, I should say, our 52-week staff. But it is not yet a paid holiday for our 38-week staff, but in negotiations, you never know what might come. So it's important to make sure that these are designated as holidays because these are days that we have to pay.
That we have to pay.
Yeah.
Contractual.
And we also have to pay the federal, state, and municipal holidays.
Correct.
So maybe we can't
that
make this
language
decision until we
preceding that
have
statement.
negotiations.
One at a time, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Mrs. Lebo, then Mrs.
Maybe
Perdios. Go
that
ahead.
statement that Mrs. Cahill introduced preceding that statement talks about the legally paid holidays.
legally paid
The
holidays.
state, federal, state,
Contractual.
municipal holidays, plus
Contractual.
Plus
Plus
these that are
those three.
pre-existing. That would be fine.
that would make much.
Existing contractual holidays.
Mrs. Perdios, then Mrs. Hubley.
Maybe we should wait until the next round of negotiations before we make policy that's going to change Good Friday or that's going to change any of these things. Maybe we kind of have a generic one, again, like the mask one, and then after we go through negotiations, we can amend the policy at any time. We can just put it back in subcommittee and amend it. But-
Nothing we just talked about would go through negotiations.
Well, you're
We just-
taking away Good Friday.
No, we're
No,
not
we didn't
taking
say
away
that.
Good Friday. We never mentioned
Well,
that.
Good Friday isn't a federal.
It's a paid holiday. We said in 3 paid holidays. So we said the federal, state, municipal holidays plus the 3 paid holidays that we have here.
And what are those 3 paid holidays?
Good Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, and Election Day. We have to put them in there. So
All right, Mrs. Hubley.
That was what I was agreeing with preceding contractual holidays. I think those 3 should be in there as that. I agree with that.
So do we have what we need to get a subsequent iteration?
Yes.
Should we take a vote on this? Because I'm not in favor of this. Or
So-
do we have
so-
to get
We take
the
a vote.
amendment first?
So is it a vote, let me ask a question. Ms. Perdios, who's not on the subcommittee, is this a vote of the whole, Mr. Mulvey? It's posted, it's a subcommittee meeting with 3 members, but it's posted as a meeting of the whole. Are any votes the entire school committee or votes of the members?
I would suggest that, obviously, the committee can suspend their rules, but it should be a vote of the subcommittee members, sending it forward to the full school committee for a full vote then.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you want to have another policy subcommittee to review an actual draft?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what
Yes.
you need to take
We have to look at the draft, approve it, and then move it to the full committee.
So I could complete a draft, we could have another policy meeting on Monday, following the teaching and learning subcommittee, and look
Okay.
at, look at a draft at that time, and then, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So it could be voted down multiple times, right?
yes, it can be voted down right now.
It could be voted down in committee, it could be, well, are we casting a vote?
We're casting a vote just of the committee according to the superintendent.
Yes.
So we're,
To amend the policy as stated. So it's going to come back to just us.
yeah. Well, I mean, would someone like to state all of the changes that we're having Ms. Owens incorporate?
I'll do my best.
Please.
We are going to change the current school committee policy about the school calendar to reflect what's in the MASC recommendations, and we're going to include in there, that our holidays will be, there's something before that, but our holidays will follow the federal, state, and municipal holidays and include the paid holidays we have of Good Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, and Election Day. Is Election Day really a holiday because the teachers are here?
It is a holiday
For a lot of people.
for a lot of people.
A lot of people.
It's actually, it's a no pay for some people, because it would be like a vacation day in February, the non-holiday vacation day. But for us, the 52-week people,
It should be in there.
I mean, technically, we're working.
We're
We're working.
It's not a
so,
holiday,
yeah.
the high school offices are open,
Right.
so the 52-week people are working.
And the teachers are working
That's right.
also, so maybe it's not a holiday.
I don't think it is.
Okay,
It's
then you can
in-
just remove, then you don't need
You
to
can
include
take that
that.
one
but-
off. And then in the last statement for this information of staff, students, and parents, we're going to drop and parent conferences at the end of that. We're also going to add in that the calendar will be prepared by the beginning of March,
March 1st.
March 1st.
And the first sentence.
And then add these seniors.
Oh, and we're also going to add the senior time into the first statement where it talks, under the secondary statement, that seniors can get out 12 days earlier. We just have, make sure it's in our policy, so.
And the
nobody
Labor Day.
questions ours.
And the Wednesday
Labor
after
Day.
Labor Day.
Labor Day? Oh, yeah, we're going to change the word from
Wednesday
from the
after Labor
first
Day.
Monday to Labor Day.
All right, so according to the superintendent, it's a vote of the subcommittee, and so it's a motion by Mrs. Lebo, seconded by Mrs. Cahill, to suggest those amendments. Do we need a voice vote suffice?
I have to do a roll call of the subcommittee.
Yep.
Okay, so Mr. Gattro,
Yes.
Mrs. Cahill,
Yes.
and Mrs. Lebo.
Yes.
So,
So it carries, the amendments will be made, we'll come back out with revisions that we'll talk about at the next, policy subcommittee, and determine if that's going to be voted out to the full committee. And so there'll be an opportunity for subsequent debate and then a debate before the full committee, correct?
Ask a question.
Mrs. Perdios.
Would the subsequent policy meeting that you guys are going to see a new draft, would that be a meeting of the whole or just the subcommittee?
Well, I mean, it should probably be a meeting of the whole, but
Why?
Next subcommittee meeting, meeting the whole.
yeah.
After.
Say again?
I said, why? Because we're going to bring it to the full committee.
Yeah,
Vote
so,
on.
yeah,
That's why I'm asking.
yeah. No, I mean, whether it's a committee or a whole, or not a committee of the whole, the question is who's going to vote? And Mr. Mulvey, are you suggesting at a subsequent meeting, whether it's posted as tonight is, as a meeting of the whole, it's still the three members that ultimately.
unless the school committee wants to,
And I'd like to weigh in on that.
wants to
So
waive those.
on a subcommittee meeting, even if it's a meeting of the whole, people are not obliged to be there if they're not on the committee, and they may not be able to make it. So I feel like the only people who should be voting on that are the subcommittee meetings, because it will go to the full meeting. I mean, there might be a chance that somebody who's
Yep.
not on the committee has already made plans, because it's not on their schedule, and even whether people are here or not, I just don't think that that's something that strikes me as fair.
Understood. So if there is, then my only ask of the vice chair is that when it does get to the full committee, we have an opportunity for a discussion.
Of course. That's what it's
All right.
what it's about.
We already took a motion, we voted, correct?
Yes.
All right,
Adjourn.
so this stands adjourned.